gonna be weird for some people if you're just here for the live stream and not the VOD. Yeah, that's gonna be weird because it's an hour later. I think if you're in Europe, because we moved our clock forward. No, we'll be an hour early. Wait, an hour earlier. If you're in Europe, it'll be an hour earlier. I think. I always get confused because. Yeah. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it's an hour earlier for Europe. For today. Because I was thinking, because a lot of times I'm trying to match Europe time. And so for me, it's an hour later. But because it's them matching my time, it's going to be an hour earlier. Yes, I think that's right. Also, I did something, and I'm very excited about it. I don't know if it's going to work. But on Twitch, if there's I made a channel point redeem for rants, for when I rant. And I think it'll change the scene automatically to the TED Talk scene. I don't know if it will for sure. I haven't really tested it. I mean, I've tested it in the program and it works, but I haven't actually tested on Twitch. So, hey, Skittle. So I don't know if it's going to be a thing. It's possible. It will also technically turn on my webcam, because like right now, okay, here. So now I have a webcam, but I'm pretty sure the scene will change it. Maybe not. It does. I didn't make it fancy. It doesn't play a sound or anything. You know, there's no alerting me that it's happening. It just does it. But I am curious. And also, I don't know. We will test it. Let's see if I redeem it. I'm going to start by redeeming it myself, just to see. Rant. Redeem. Did it work? It doesn't seem like it. It didn't change my scene. Maybe it takes a moment? Maybe I didn't have it automated? Maybe it puts it in the queue or something and I... Queues. Completed count 1. Why does it say there's 1 but it didn't do anything? Yes, I made the rant command. I tried to do a channel point redeem. I could have made it a command. Probably should have just added it to the command. With a timer. Yeah, messing with StreamerBot. Yeah, it works. So in StreamerBot, if I... Look, I can show you, I think. I mean, kind of. So, this, I don't think there's anything leaky. I don't think I'm... Okay, but if I right-click and do test trigger, it works. Like, this works. And now you... Well, now you can't see my screen. But it does the thing. Like, it does what it's supposed to. I don't know... And it's connected with Twitch, and I don't know why it doesn't... Clearly, there's an integration issue. It knows... Maybe it's not connected with Twitch, actually. Maybe it's connected only with OBS. Maybe that's the issue. I bet you that's the issue. I bet it's not connected with Twitch. Because I didn't particularly do anything to make it connected with Twitch. No, it gets my Twitch chat. It knows what my Twitch is. Hold on. No, I've made it stream apps. No, not stream apps. Platforms. Twitch. Yeah, okay, it's not added. So can I just do like a... No, wait, it is. Accounts. Log out. No, it is added. Channel point rewards. Nope, not that. Sorry, I'm fiddling with settings. I shouldn't be doing this. But yeah, anyway, hope everyone's doing well today. I'm gonna do some map crunching those maps. Virtual plein air painting. In just a moment. I want to figure this out before people get here, but maybe it doesn't matter. It does say it's connected. Configuring Twitch. Probably not that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it needs to turn it off and on again or something. Or maybe it works if it's not me. Maybe I've removed myself from commands. I might have done that. I think I might have made it so I can't see my own chat. So, because, like... Actually, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to wait. I'll wait and have someone else test it. Someone that isn't me. But you have to wait 20 minutes because you can't... I put a timer on it so I can't, like... People can't force it. Yeah, it's on cooldown. Yeah, no worries, Pepperly. Also, Pepperly, I think I sent you a print. Finally. It was a while. Or was it you who I didn't send a print and I needed to, but I didn't know which print you wanted? It might have been that. Hold on. I remember something about you and a print, and I can't remember if I sent you the print, or if you had redeemed a print but never told me what one you wanted. Or if you did tell me which one you wanted, I didn't know. Let me take a peek. Sorry, I am all over the place today, setting things up. Let's check out these. It might have been you. It was Pepperly. So Pepperly, you said, there it is when you redeemed the print 3 months ago. It was a full 3 months ago. Okay. As long as you're aware of it, then that's fine. I don't actually mind. Like, you can wait as long as you want, and I'm fine with that. I just don't want people to redeem a print and be like, where's my print? I want it now. And, like, you know, shame on Joe. He's terrible for not sending me the print. I did send out all the other prints, though, except for yours. Well, technically, except for yours and some others. But the other people... yeah, anyway. There's reasons why the other ones aren't getting their prints, because they never told me, and also they don't actually want the print. They just wanted to redeem it for fun. But there's like 2 people who, yeah, you're like one of 2 people. Neck in the clouds, how's it going? All right, so what's on the to-do list? Map Crunch. Map Crunch is on the to-do list. So what I want to do today is, actually, first what I want to do is turn this down to 144p so it's not lagging my computer in the background. You actually have enough points for a second one. Well, if you want to let me know 2 at a time, I think do I have your address? I don't know. I might. I think you might have filled out that part, but I don't know which print to send you. So if you, I don't? Okay. But yeah, if you want to let me know where to send the prints and 2 of the prints that you want, I can send them both in the same envelope. Anyway, not a big deal. If you want to wait 3 months before you get them or whatever, that's fine too. Saves me on postage. But anyway, yeah, so I'm going to do some Map Crunch. For those who don't know what Map Crunch is, it's basically just, well, Google Earth, but it's random. You can take you to random places. I think this is the Map Crunch of the day. Oh, there's a redeem. Pepperly, you did it. Good job. Thanks for the redeem. Might as well, LOL. So, okay, I'm not going to nitpick over it. It's not a big deal. Normally, I will let you know, though, just for future. Normally, when people redeem, instead of saying might as well, LOL, in the redeem, that's where you would put which print you want. That way I know which print you want. But not a big deal, because you can let me know in another way. It's fine. It just makes it more for you to remember and for me to remember, because then anyway, it's not an issue. I had no idea. Yeah, it's fine. You can do it in the form. There's not a dedicated spot in the form, but in the last line of your, like, I think there's 4 or 5 address lines, and most people don't need 5 because that's like super unique scenarios. So in like after you fill in your address, it'll be like last address form or last address line. You can just put the prints in there. You can just type them out which ones you want. I can figure it out. But yeah, that works too. Either works. But anyway, I'm doing some Map Crunch painting. Virtual plein air painting. I don't know quite what I want to paint. You know, that's kind of the beauty of this, though. It puts us in this location. You know, if we could be painting a person with their dogs down by the water. Or we could paint an old An old van. Not a van. It's probably that person's van, if I had to guess. Down by the water. Or we could paint this random... not random, but electrical place. Power place. Place that... high voltage. Danger of death? Hold up. Is this... Do you guys see this? This is a real sign? Where is this? Is this United Kingdom? Wait, Skittle. Is this what your high voltage signs say? Danger of death? This is amazing. I wish we had our high voltage sign saying danger of death. That's an electric fence? Is it? That's an electric fence? No, I think it just means this place is high voltage. I don't think if you were to open this gate, you would get electrocuted. I think this is there is electrical stuff in here, and you do not want to be in here because you could get electrocuted. I don't think the fence itself is electric. Danger of death. I love this. America definitely needs more explicit signage. I mean, we do have, like, danger high voltage. I feel like that. But danger of death does make sense, right? Like, just beware of death. Like, don't be here or you might die. Whereas, like, beware high voltage, if you had an idiot who doesn't know what high voltage means, like, you could end up dying because... But I feel like that's... I don't know. We also have signs that say there is no 5G at this location. In the US or in America or in the UK? Are you in the UK? Neck in the clouds? There is no 5G at this location. That seems like a really weird sign. This one I love. There's no 5. Why? Is that like to put off like people who are like, what do you call it? Like the conspiracy theorists? Or is that just to let people know there's no Wi-Fi? It's because people started shooting. Okay, so it's the crazies. Okay, gotcha. I thought it was like, that's like saying, like, because I'm like, couldn't you put up a sign that says there is no everything? Like, there is no pink flamingos here. Well, yeah, but like, you could have said that for anything, you know? There is no 5G here. And many other things that there aren't right here. But anyway, no, I get it. I kind of understand it. That is very stupid. There is no conspiracy at this location. Yeah, that's what they should say. Anyway, I just love this sign. This is the greatest sign I've ever seen. Danger of death. Like, we have beware of dog, right? Like, beware of dog signs. But basically, it's like saying beware of death. Which I think is just funny. So yeah. Does anyone have a location they want me to paint? If so, let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna go on an adventure. Hit random. See where we end up. You know what? Let's go back. Nope. Let's actually paint this. This is a nice scene right here. A car. We're gonna paint a car. Just start the day off with something chill. Nothing too, nothing too crazy. But there is something that I want to focus on when painting this, if I do this car. I like the lighting is interesting because it's so bland, right? You know, that UK weather. It's so so gray. And yet there's still that nice bluish yellow gray. So I feel like we can do a lot here. And I just want to play around. My proportions are probably not right. I'm not too worried about making it perfect. Submitted, sorry for being slow about it. Yeah, no worries. I mean, again, I'm also slow about it. So, if, you know, you still may not get it super soon, because I did just send them out, and I oftentimes only do it, like, once a month, but I will try. There's no reason I can't send them out, so I'll try to send it out soon enough. Uh-oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Wrong layer alert. That needs to be another command. Hold on, let's just undo all this. We're gonna unpaint this. That's not the word. Erase it. Okay, now I'm on the right layer. You know what? Let's get some ground plane in there. I always tell people that's what you should start with. Some ground plane. There's some stuff back here. You know, we can see a little bit of the top. So, like this. Again, I'm going to end up making this way too... I do that a lot. I don't know why, but when I sketch this, it's because of the foreshortening. I always end up doing a weird thing. Okay, anyway, so here's that. Here's that. This goes like this. Slightly less steep angle. I should have done this. I'm bad at proportions. You know, that's something I need to get better at. This is why I'm doing this, right? To get better at it? I mean, it's just a square. Right? But that's not... It doesn't look like a square. What's wrong with this? Why am I bad at drawing? No, I don't think I'm bad. I think I'm not good at this specific skill. I guess some of these lines are at an angle, and the lines that I have don't look like they're at an angle. That's not looking at all like the thing. I mean, it's not completely not like the thing. It's vaguely like the thing, right? Vaguely. But there's still it's gotta be proportion stuff that's not right. This feels too stubby. Like I need to come in here and just go bloop and stretch it. Sorry for being slow about it. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't mind it. I'm slow about stuff too. I always forget to send out the prints. I think also here's a thing that is interesting, and I don't know. So I'm using like a weird chunky brush. Let's do this. We'll make this a little smaller. By a little smaller, I mean a lot smaller. I didn't do much perspective here. Normally I don't do lines, which is why I'm kind of having fun here. A little bit of... Also, I didn't make those sections here right. This one goes in front of the tire. This one goes after the curve. And this is like that. And this one goes, this is not a thing. There's nothing back here. And this one goes a little bit longer, like that. And then this one, this shape isn't right. This goes back over here more. My drawing skills leave something to be desired. Just a little bit, if I do say so myself. And not to, like, trash on my own skills, but this is not my strong suit. I mean, I can get by it. Also, if I'm painting it, I can refine it forever. Which is nice. But I don't like to do that. There's also a taller part here. And then here there's like... I think it's not wide enough. I think that's part of it. But yeah, how's everyone doing? Okay, this is not an appealing car. Something's wrong with the hood. The hood of the car. So this part's fine. Maybe. So I'm having a hard time making straight lines for some reason. I don't know why. Skill issue, I think. That good old skill issue. Rearing its head. And then here, this is all dark. But it kinda... There's a bump here, right? And it sticks out a little bit. I think that this part's too slender, too. It needs to come out more like that. How's my stream holding up? It's okay so far. But yeah, normally this is not what you do for plein air sketching, but I'm doing it this way because... well, why not? I just wanted to draw a car. It's been a while since I've drawn cars. Okay, my perspective's way off here. But now I can fix it. I feel like I can fix things. Kinda. I feel like I can fix it. I think that's not bad. And then there's some bushes and stuff back here. And then there's some darker spots back here. And then this is all like a medium value. Darker spots back here. Lighter value in the front. But we also have these nice dark shadows underneath. And I feel like that will add a lot. Again, this is very, very loose. But yeah, anyway, if anyone wants to join along, you can do... I think just on the front page of MapCrunch is this location. It's literally not even... yeah, it's not even like a custom location or anything. It's just literally the front page. But I can give you a direct link if you guys want. So it's to this. Share, copy, If anybody's interested in participating or drawing along, you can, right there. There you go. There. Okay. But let's make this, let's paint in color. I think color is more fun. Let's paint in color. But I think that the general sketch isn't bad. Maybe there's some perspective issues. Like some foreshortening stuff in the foreground. This feels a little bit narrow. So we can bring it out this way. Maybe like that? Is that... Something's not right with the perspective. But maybe it can be sorted out. I mean, of course it can be sorted out. All problems in art can be solved. Well, technically. Kind of. Maybe. Actually, that's not true. There's totally unsolvable problems in art. Like, just asking to do a thing that is so contradictory, like... Sometimes, well, maybe not. Maybe it's debatable. I feel like there's definitely unsolvable problems. Which is like, if you have your goal of making something like, you know, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. But like, you want to use, you know, certain colors. Like, I must use this color, and this color, and this color, and this color, and nothing but those colors. No darker versions of any of those. And also, I can't mix them, and I need it to feel realistic, right? These are never gonna feel realistic if you don't mix them, right? These colors are just too saturated, too bright, and they're not, yeah. So sometimes if you set constraints on yourself that are too unrealistic, it's just, or too, like, out there, you can't necessarily achieve the thing. But I think if you have a goal, and you start with your goal, then you can get there. Also, there's a big rock here, which I like. Okay, let's add some color. Let's slap the color on here. Get some greens. I'm gonna just do this directly on top of it and paint in, because that's the way I like to do it. I'm also not painting very saturated, because I think when you're doing environments, you can always add saturation back in. It's really easy. It's quite harder to take it out. I don't know. I mean, not really, but I feel like saturation is just one of those things that it's very easy to add saturation, especially if you use layer modes. Now, I do want to make sure the green is darker, or dark enough, because I want the orange car to be brighter. Right? So I kind of don't care what color the green is, to be honest. I just want to make sure it's darker than the car. And of course we can add bits of green back here. There. But yeah, what's everybody up to today? Is anybody doing any art? Any arting? I'm gonna push this into the oranges back here. No, wait, if we go too orange though, then it's gonna compete with the car. Whatever. We can use some orange back here. And then let's get some of that grayish, bluish color. Cool blue. Doesn't have to be actually cool blue, but basically just gray. And this is quite a light blue, or quite a light gray. It doesn't have to be, but it seems to be that way. And now orange. I think for the orange, I want There seems to be a saturation streak right across this side. Almost just like straight across the middle. More saturated. And then everything else feels like it's blending into gray. Especially along the bottom, but I'll fix that in a moment. And then the top. I know there's more methodical ways of painting than this. But I do feel like a lot of times, at least for me, I feel like I see other people when they paint try to be very, like, very methodical, and sometimes there's like a stiffness. I don't know. I don't think it has anything to do with how you paint, really, but it's probably more about like what your priorities are when you're painting. That's my hunch. I'm no pro, though. What do I know? Let's add in some actually, let's not do that. Let's do like a blue. We're gonna come in here to the actual blue and put it right on the top. Yeah, I'm not liking this. It feels tilted. Is it a shadow issue? I don't think so. I don't think it's a shadow issue. I think it's a foreshortening issue. Like, this is going this way. And this is going up here. And so we're looking at it at a different angle, and I drew it more like profile view. So I think it's like a, if I were to distort this, I think if I were to go, hold on, transform, free transform. Like that, maybe? A little bit, and then I'll probably have to fix some of the other shapes. I think that kind of works. And now I probably, yeah, now I need to fix this thing on the front. Rant. Wait, oh, it didn't change the thing, did it? Yeah, it didn't change. I don't know why it didn't change. Thank you for the redeem. It didn't change the rant scene. It should have. It should have changed it to this, but it didn't. I'll do it manually. That wasn't a real rant, though. But that's okay. I don't expect it to be used. I mean, that's up for your guys' decision, right? I don't need to decide if it was a rant. But yeah, anyway, this is very, very blurry, I realize. I don't know why. I feel like it's... Is it a brush issue? No, probably not. It's probably me issue. Let's make this nice and orange. Something like that, maybe. What brushes do you use the most? Do you stick with one usually, or switch a lot? Good name 11. I mostly stick with one. I don't typically paint like this though. The normal stuff that I paint. Here, let me show you. Also, let me move off this screen here because that's obnoxious. Let's just go back to, like, I don't know, a random stuff I painted a while back. What did I paint? Let's just pick a, I don't know, what's this one? This one will work. So I normally paint like fantasy landscape type stuff. And yeah, I normally pretty much just use this one brush. Although today I feel like it's, I don't know if it's a tablet thing or what. But yeah, I normally just use the same brush that I'm using now. This is what I painted last scene. It was a arena skin. But anyway, yeah, I don't normally do like painting from a photo like this. And so, but yeah, I don't think it matters too much what brush. I mostly use a brush like this. A brush that you can make, as long as you can make a solid shape, right? And you can do like shape design stuff, and you can, you know, make triangles or rectangles, and they have fairly hard edges. That's kind of one of my requirements. And then also this brush does have some texture, right? So you can get some texture in there if you wanted. Or you can make it smooth and kind of like an airbrush effect if you want. So it has a lot of versatility. Yeah, it's a good brush for most things. But yeah, good name on YouTube. Thanks for popping in. Hope you're doing well today. We're gonna go a little bit more orangey yellow in the background. Does it have a color pull as well? What do you mean by color pull? Like it's pretty, it can get the whatever color you pick on your color wheel, it can get that exact color. So it won't be like, sometimes brushes will always be a little bit less saturated, you know, like they'll never quite give a full coverage, so you'll always end up like pushing the colors to gray. This can go full saturation. There is no jitter, so whatever color you pick is the color it puts. There's no like variance, if that's what you mean. Some brushes have color jitter. This one doesn't. I mean, I have a lot of brushes. I don't use 99.9% of them. Some of them, like this one. Is it this one? Nope, not this one. This one has like a color jitter. That's more of a blend brush. This is the one I was thinking. This one has like, it interacts a lot. It has a lot of blending. So you do get some additional like, you know, smudgy colors like this. That little darker green spot where they kind of blend. And so you get a little bit of like, is that what you mean by it pulls the color inward? It has a bit of like a smear to it where it kind of, if you do like a light brush stroke, it'll sort of mix with your other colors. And you kind of get this this mixing effect. Is that what you mean? Hey, Little Leo, how's it going? Because yeah, so that's a thing. That's for sure a thing with some brushes. The brush I'm using now doesn't have that, but actually it would be nice on this, for example, when I'm painting this, just to have some of that smeariness. I don't know if I need that. Let's play around with a different brush right now. I'm not trying to make it exactly the same colors, but it would be nice if it feels similar. Color push-pull is an inking setting. I think it's next to color jitter. Okay, I don't think this, I mean, this brush might have it, but I don't think my other brush has it. Let me see what setting. Let's go in the settings. Brush, ink. Color stretch? Is that what you mean? This one has some. I don't think this other brush does. If I go up here and go to the brush I was using, yeah, this one doesn't have any. This has no color stretch or density or amount of paint or anything. It doesn't even have any color mixing, blending mode normal, opacity 100. Oh, sorry, you can't see that. 1 second. Let me show you so you can see. Yeah, so this one doesn't have any of that. I assume color stretch is what you meant by color pull under inking settings. Color jitter, there's none of that. We could add some. Yeah. So like this brush that I was using just for funsies right here, this did have a bit of that color stretch. It had 16. And I think you can see it in here, right? There's a bit of that blending effect going on where it kind of takes the color from the outside and it sort of pulls it inward. So like if I'm painting right along the edge here, it'll pick up some of that gray. So like, I think it's picking up some of that gray from the edge. Like I didn't technically make that part gray, but I think it kind of picked it up. But anyway, yeah. I am not a fan of these colors right now, though. But I do want to play with colors, so I'm gonna play with this brush a little bit. Put some grays in there. I always like to treat these as just, like, a lot of experimentation. You know, I feel like these virtual plein air things, it's kind of what they're good for, is you know, just practicing various things. Maybe some brush work, maybe some other stuff. Also a little bit of sketching practice, because whatever's happening here is not going well. At least in my opinion. It's not quite looking the way that I want. That's okay. We'll fix it. We will get there. And my goal today is not to make these perfect. How do you get really dynamic forms in your stuff without reference? Oh, this one I'm using reference right now. Oh, you mean like this? Mostly they're pretty simple forms, right? I mean, I think they're pretty much like, these are all very simple. They're all like, here, let's move this for a second. And let's go back to a brush I can control. So like in this one, I mean, and I do use references, like even for these, so I don't have a direct reference in these. Here, let me do a quick thumbnail so I can show you. So a lot of times when I'm painting, if I'm doing like fantasy stuff, I might have like, okay, here's gonna be a roadway or like a bridge, and then maybe on the side, I'll make like essentially a square. So I'm making a shadow, and then maybe there's like a spot sticking up, and maybe, I don't know why I made it so weird like that. Let's go like this, and we'll make a kind of a road. So I'm just adding something. Maybe there's some stuff in the background, and we'll go a little lighter, and then a little darker, and we'll make some layering of stuff. I don't know, something like that. So sometimes it's just a matter of putting some light and shadow in. In this case, I'm gonna darken or lighten all of this up. And then from here, a lot of times what I'll do is I'm basically just gonna sculpt out like here's gonna be a square, and so it's just a cube. And as long as the cube is in perspective, right? Then from there, if I wanted to make it like, I'm basically just painting the light and shadow. So like in this case, the light is gonna, you know, maybe a little bit of ambient light here. Of shadow here. If I wanted to add some fill light in here, I could always, you know, maybe I put another color, you know, a little bit of yellow into the shadows, or whatever. Or maybe I want to put a big strong light in here that's gonna, you know, destroy half of this stuff. Like, you know, like this or something, right? Maybe there's a ton of light coming in. And then maybe back here there's that soft blue light, you know? And so it really, most of the time it's fairly basic forms. You know, sometimes, you know, if I wanted to like make this a dome or something up here, then maybe I, you know, hopefully I can paint a dome, and, you know, this edge might be a little blended. You know, maybe I want it to be not a perfect dome, so maybe there's like a, you know, like a square base here or something. Or if I want to cut inward here, if I want to make like a more technical shape, you know, maybe I go like this, and I use light and shadow to indicate things. Hello! Thank you for the subscribe! Miwoos, how's it going? Right, so maybe I do that, and then a lot of it's around the silhouette. What the heck? Well, Hannah's Art Studio, wait, is this... Achoo. Thank you so much for the gift sub. The Good Namariel, Thank you so much. The good name real. Probably nobody just rated, and we're getting rated. Bless me. Thank you. Thank you for the subs. Thank you very much for the subs. How are you? How's everyone doing? We just got rated by probably nobody, who is definitely somebody. But thank you probably nobody for the raid. So yeah, a lot of times when I'm painting forms like this, it's kind of a carving. I mean, this is very low resolution, but like a lot of the form is sort of implied by the silhouettes. So maybe we don't want this to be a domed top. You know, maybe it's just gonna be that square base or that square top, right? And so a lot of times these like little things like an in-cut line like this, it's just as long as the silhouette has a form like that, and then from there it's a lot of it's like trying to make sure your perspective is consistent. Contour lines, you know, maybe I'll add a little bit of shading or something down there, but just something to like help indicate that we are looking up at this part and we're looking down at this part. Yeah, so that's kind of how I typically start, and then I layer on top from there. Good Dame says I end up usually starting with silhouettes. I guess starting with the ground well, yeah. So I mean, I do also start with silhouettes, typically, but a lot of it is like when you're starting with a silhouette, right? This shape here can be a form, right? But at some point you have to start deciding like what is the shape of this form, you know? Is it gonna be a weird shape like this? And is this gonna be the part that's in light? You know, how does that shape look? Is it rounded? Is it square? You know, you could make this shape anything you want, but it's gonna start changing how we see the form. We could make it a funky shape. You know, and so a lot of it's just like carving out. You know, so you do start with silhouette, right? A lot of times, or at least I do, but not always, right? Or we could, yeah, I don't know. It kind of depends. If you're going to do direct light, you can start, like, especially in the background, I'll do silhouette, because typically background stuff gets very, very flat, right? So like in this one, these are essentially just silhouettes, right? This is mostly a silhouette. There's a little bit of a side plane on here, right? This part here, but mostly it's just a silhouette of a tower. The good real name, no problem. I switched to Twitch since no super chats enabled. Gotcha. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, I don't have anything enabled on YouTube because I want Twitch to be the main place. That's where most people tend to be lurking and watching and chatting. Although some days are more than others. Like today, I think our first chatters were more or less on YouTube. But yeah, I appreciate you popping in, Good Name, and thank you so much for the gift subs. That's extremely generous of you. But yeah, Probably Nobody, what were you working on? And anybody coming in from Probably Nobody's stream, CowJS, Bored Little Unicorn, what were you guys working on? I want to know. Or what was Probably Nobody working on? Maybe they raid and ran. But what we are working on is virtual plein air painting. So I have a map crunch location up here like this, and we went somewhere. This is just the default spot that it sent us, and yeah, we went down the road a bit, found this car, and I'm like, you know what, let's paint this. So we're painting this vehicle right here, and yeah, I enjoy it like this because then you kind of get to choose your composition a little. You get to decide what it is you're painting. You know, you could have painted this scene with a little bit of a car in the front, or you could have painted this. You know, you could have gone down the road this way and found something to paint, you know? Like, oh, there's a person. We could paint this old man. Or just the scenery. But that's kind of what we're doing. She did run to go eat. Yeah, no worries. No problem. You said I'm just chilling for work. Novo was working on an OC. Oh, nice. Very cool. Also, my music's a little loud, isn't it? I apologize for the loudness. Hold on. I gotta My music was too loud. How do I turn it down? YouTube volume is snapping the volume. Okay, there we go. It's in between song though. But yeah. So yeah, we were just doing some virtual plein air painting, taking a break from the normal fantasy landscape stuff. Although it's good because I'm finding that my draftsman skills are not that good. So yeah, it's carving out some shapes here. There's a little bit of like a dark line down near the base of the windows, which I like. Drawing cars, they're so hard because they're all symmetrical, and you have to actually be good at perspective, and you can't just fudge it, because if you make it weird, it's going to be extremely obvious, and if you get the proportions wrong, it's going to be obvious, or if the lines aren't parallel, it's going to be it's just so obvious when you are pretending to know what you're doing, and that's me when I paint. My favorite enemy. Charzia, how's it going? My favorite enemy. Yeah, I like that saying. My favorite enemy. But still an enemy. Of all the enemies, that's my favorite. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, do you want to be someone's favorite enemy, or do you want to be someone's worst enemy? Which is preferable? I actually don't know. I'm not really sure what a favorite enemy is, to be honest. But Charzy, I hope you're doing well. Putting a little bit of that green shining through that window, but not fully green. Anything other than a tree or rock for me? Fear. Yeah, I'm similar. I mean, kinda. Like, I'm willing to take it on, but yeah, what am I doing here? Yeah. Trees and rocks, you can get away with a lot, right? You can get away with a lot. If it looks funky, then that's okay, because trees and rocks can look funky. Your car looks amazing. Thanks. It's a little bit tilted. It's a little bit tilted, but that's okay. No one will know. Also, I don't think it looks like the right type of car. I will say, I think a lot of these lines here can really help, because they can help add to that perspective. Thank you so much for the raid. We're getting raided by Rovi. Rovi, how's it going? Rovi, how are you? It's not bad. I mean, this isn't the greatest thing. Also, it doesn't really look like it's on the road. Let's brighten this up a little bit. Let's warm up the road here. Warm it up with some grays. And then this could be a little darker, and this could be a little lighter. I'm hanging in there, been painting a bunch. Nice! Fantastic. Oh, do you want to share? Any art tax? Anyone who came in from any of the raids? We just got a double raid, kinda. If anyone wants to share what they were working on, I'd love to see. Here's a little rock. It's actually why I picked the scene, because there's a rock in it, and I could feel justified and be like, look, I made a rock. No, that's not actually why I picked the scene. But I do like painting rocks. They are some of my favorite things to paint. Also, I think back here we can do some compositional stuff, like bring this up. Add some more darkness back here. Make some graphical shapes. I think that's pretty good. It's not perfect, you know, but what does that even mean? Perfect in a plein air painting, and, you know, it kind of depends on what your goals are. And my goals were sort of loosey-goosey. They're just to have fun, mostly, but also, I guess, the things that you know, I did want to make the perspective more accurate than it probably is, but... Definitely some form issue. I think in the front of the car, it doesn't feel like it's in perspective quite. I don't know. Like, if you kind of squint, it sort of kind of works. But there's definitely some wonkiness there. That's okay. How do you find reference for this? Just click random point in Google Maps or use a website. So I'm using, it's called MapCrunch. So, literally mapcrunch.com. And then, yeah, I just clicked a random location. I think this one is the default, so if you go to mapcrunch.com, you'll be in the same location. But if you just hit a random spot, it'll put you somewhere. And it's like, look, this is cool. Let's paint this. It's a cool rock wall. Or maybe you want to paint, you know, go down the road a bit and, you know, find something cool. Or maybe you don't like this location at all. But typically there's something to find, like, oh, look, trees, you know. Or I like this little scene, you know. Maybe the colors are nice, and so you want to do, like, a colorful, you know, a jumble of plants or something. A lot of times, what I really like about MapCrunch is that they aren't curated Pinterest photos, which means you kind of have to, like, work for your subject matter and, like, a composition. Nothing's gonna look so beautiful that you have to paint it. There are occasionally, like, you know, like standalone images where it will be like that, but most of the time it's just like a random street. And so if you want to find something that you really like want to paint, you kind of have to, like, you know, figure out how you're gonna frame it and be like, oh, I like this, but also maybe these power lines are obstructing the view, so I want to get rid of the power lines. You know, maybe this is a good scene because it's a good example of what I'm talking about. I'll leave link here. All right, let's take a look. This is what Rovi was working on. Oh, I love this. I love this. It's an archer elf, an elven archer at night. Also, I like the way you did the lighting at night. Like just a rim light, but it still feels like it's at night. That's really nice. Thank you so much for sharing. This is very cool. But yeah, if you guys want to follow Rovi or probably nobody, both people, then yeah, go follow them. I'll shout out you, Rovi. /shout out. Actually, first, yeah, I'll shout out you, Rovi Draws. And in a moment, I will also shout out probably nobody. I got an ad, but I hope you like it. Oh no! And yes, I do like it. Oh. Hopefully that... Yeah, there we go. I do like this very much. This is nice. Yeah, this is super cool. And yeah, go follow Rovi, everybody. And also a shout out, probably _nobody. Is that how you spell their name? I think it is. It's, yeah. I like that username. Oh, was it not done shouting out? Probably. I don't know if it was done shouting out. It didn't work. Oh, you have to wait 53 seconds before another shout out. Okay, no worries. But yeah, so I think I'm going to paint this because it's kind of a nice little composite. Like, there's sort of some compositional stuff we can play with. And this is actually what I prefer to do, although admittedly this is what I need to do. Like, or not need to, but you know how there's that concept of like what you want to do in the moment of like your desire of like, you know, I want to eat ice cream because it's tasty, and then there's like the what you want to do, which is like I want to eat vegetables because they're healthy and I want to be the type of person who eats more healthy. But you don't actually want to eat vegetables right now, but you would like to want to eat vegetables, you know what I mean? And so also vegetables are tasty, but I want to do more of this stuff, right? Because I think it's good for me, and I think I would benefit more from it because I struggle with it. But what I like to do is this, the type of thing where you take a scene that is a little bit messy, and you change it, right? Like you decide, you make the choices of what you want to keep, what you want to get rid of. I love this stuff. I love the, like, instead of painting exactly what's in the scene, it's more about doing it based on like compositional things and problem solving. Yeah, just I love that stuff. Best description ever. Thanks. Thank you for the follow. But yeah, a lot of times in this stuff, I do like to start with like the roads, just getting some landmarks in. But most of the time, I do just, like for this, I'm gonna more or less jump straight in to like just a silhouette. So like, you know, I like the fact that there's some big trees here. Maybe there's those 2 trees, right? They're towering over everything, and I'm just making them triangles right now. So, and then I you know, there's some lighter trees that are like, you know, more yellow in the front, like this, but they're not as big. And then there's also some here. And then there's like this big tree, which is sticking up, but I don't want to make it quite as tall as the others, right? Like this is something that I could do, but I'm going to intentionally choose to make it smaller. And maybe these will intentionally be larger. Right, and then there's some smaller trees back here. And then in front, right, we have like, there's another thing here. I'm not really worried about the foreground. And then in the front, there's like those red trees, right? There's those pink shapes. There's one here. There's a couple around the side. There's kind of one in the foreground. Right, I like that, and I think that's this to me is a fun way to paint, where you just build up the shapes, and then you can start going in and being like, okay, where's all the darkness of this? You know, maybe some bigger shapes and designing the, you know, we can do the branches and stuff later, and of course there's like a ledge here. That ledge feels like it's, on one hand, it's like a warm, almost like a white, probably not quite that bright. And on the other hand, it is quite a dark, probably like a bluish color, like a blue-gray. And then that'll be like under there. And there's like a little bump out here where it gets that. There's some rounded shapes. And then these, of course, we get these very bright purple, pinks and purples in here. Apologies for avoiding the art tax payment. No worries. Shame on you. How dare you not pay your taxes? No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the art tax. Let's see what probably nobody is working on. But yeah, hope your stream went well. Probably nobody. Also, I love this. This is super cool. Somebody said this, you were drawing your OC. So I assume this is your OC. Anthony. I like it. Okay, I'm gonna ask a very stupid question because I just don't know, and I'm curious. Is this for anything, like, typically when you draw OCs, are they for, like, a story that you're writing, or a comic? Or is it just, like, character design? And I assume it's for something, right? Maybe, maybe not. I never, and this is gonna be my ignorance, because I never know when people use that term, what's the difference between designing an OC and just like doing a character design, like, because you know, like there's character like concept artists, right, and character designers is like a profession, and like when they're doing practice, do they say I'm making an OC, or like what's, I don't know what the difference is. Like, aren't you just doing a character design? Which it is, and I like it. It's a good job. Or is it just a difference of a word? I don't know. Designing an OC feels way more lore-based. Okay. I kind of feel that. Like, I always... That's why I kind of asked about, like, a story. A lot of times people, I think, when they have a main story that they're, like, writing or they're telling, an OC is often, like, a character in their story. My personal take is character design equals practice. OC normally has some sort of planned story lore. Okay. Well, that's kind of why I asked if it was for something specific. I don't think it matters. It's kind of the same thing, right? It's just like a different term. I feel like sometimes it's more of like the communities that you're a part of, kind of, and how they talk about it. I don't think it really matters. I just never quite understand how other people use it, and so I'm always trying to figure it out, because every time I feel like I have it figured out, it's not right. Yeah, this is great. I like it. I like it a lot. Nice work. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Oh. Let's go back here. Good art tax, yes. Pepperly says, just a design is a pretty picture, while an OC will be a redrawn expanded. I mean, I'll take your word on the second part, but the first part doesn't quite sound right, right? Because a lot of character design, what goes into good design is like research and development and figuring out the who, what, where, when, why, and how, and the backstory, and understanding who this character is and communicating it properly. I think good character designers do think about a lot of that stuff. It may be as personal to them. I do that with an OC too. That's why I said I agree with your second part, right? An OC will be redrawn, expanded. But like, a character is your creation, but an OC is your own child. Ooh, I like that. I like that distinction. And that's kind of the vibe I get, right? It feels more personal. It feels more personal. Like, this is something for me, as opposed to this is because I like coming up with this. Like, in theory, they could be the same, but one, I feel like... Like, for example, would you ever make an OC that is like I mean, maybe you would. I don't know. Would you ever make an OC that is like truly a terrible person? Because to me, I feel like you can do character designs for like villains, right? And just like awful, evil people. But I feel like it would be weird, like, this is my OC. That feels like maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like a not probably very common. Right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not at all. Heck yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't really know how it all works, but I'm always curious, because that's not like an area. And it's funny because, like, is there an equivalent for environments? Do people have environment OCs? Like, this is what you just call world building, right? And like you designing your own worlds, I guess. You have your children's backs? Gotcha. I've seen so many people just like make like murderers and be like, this is my precious baby. Oh no, that's funny. Okay, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people do have terrible OCs. but it feels hard to like care a lot about, right? Like whereas I feel like people care about their OCs, and it feels weird to like care a lot about. Like I can think you can be proud of a design, right? Like I do a lot of world building, right? Yeah, yeah. So like your thumbnails would be the character design equivalent to world building equating to an OC. Gotcha. Okay, so designing your own world for like, but like assuming you stay in universe, right? Like, because like sometimes you do like, I mean, it's so similar. I really do feel like it's just a matter of perspective and how you talk about it. Anyway, let's put some far off distant trees back here. And of course, what I'm doing right now is neither designing nor... I mean, I guess I'm doing, like, image design, but I'm not... Or in shape design, but I'm not doing... but I'm not designing this scene, right? So this is just painting. So this is neither designing nor OCing. No, painting or OCs is designing. What am I talking about? But yeah, that's not what this is. But yeah, this is the thing that I really enjoy doing with paint, with this kind of map crunch type thing, because this feels more like virtual plein air painting, where you're just trying to take what you like about a scene and lean into that a little bit. I feel like a lot of my stuff ends up looking flat like this. Let's take a look. I'm just putting straight on screen. Oh, I like it. I don't think this looks super flat. You mean like form wise? Like, I mean, there is like a not like a graphicalness to it. Like in the form. Also, I don't know why there's this weird loading shape that's weirding me out. I don't like that. I don't like that it looks like it's loading, but it's here. Do you mean like this? I do wonder like if a light, some light and shadow, like you have a little bit of ambient light in here, but I do wonder if a bit of like direct light or something could help solve that. I don't think it looks that flat. I mean, maybe like in a distance, like up here, it looks like it's far away, but then in this middle area where it's red, it does kind of become like a big wall of red. And I do wonder if there's, you know, some more nuanced lighting of the forms could make these clouds look more like, you know, bumpy, textured hills. But I don't think you need that. Oops, I don't know what just happened. But I like it. I like it a lot. The background, midground, and foreground aren't really well connected, and it often feels strange if I try. Do you mean like do you mean just because you like silhouetted everything? It's because of like your lighting? So you, because like I do that too, right? Not so much in this one. I'm trying to think of one. Let me find an image real quick that I did backlighting on. Cause I feel like that image is very backlit. I guess I can bring it back up on screen. Hold on. Like, it's very backlit, right? All the lighting's in the background and none of the lighting's in the foreground. Is that what you mean, kinda? Because I do think that kind of lighting can end up feeling very graphical and just almost like cutout, like paper cutout sort of stuff. And I've had that experience as well. Which is actually why I like to, in some cases, like to branch out into other things. I think a lot of times, like this is an example, kind of, where if I didn't have the foreground, if we were to crop this image... Oh, posture check, thank you. If we were to crop this image like this, I think this would also feel very disconnected, right? We have all this light back here, and then there's none of it in the foreground, right? It feels disconnected, and I think I think for me, having a ground plane where I can sort of literally, in this case, draw a line from the foreground to the, you know, so this stuff is not graphical. I mean, it still is, right? There's still these trees here that are just literally graphical shapes, just big blobs that I made. I mean, even this is a big blob, right? It's a big two-dimensional shape. There's a little bit of texture and stuff in the midground, but like, you know, everything in the background is just a horizontal line. Not a horizontal line. It's just a literal graphical line, right? But does this have that disconnected feel? Because it might. I don't know. I do think that having some sort of foreground with not just over... Because, like, a lot of times when I start my paintings... A lot of times my paintings start like this, where I'm just making literal, like, hills and overlapping shapes. What is Map Crunch Monday? So Map Crunch is a, basically Google Earth, like this. Basically Google Earth. Google Street View, you can go travel. You can hit random, it'll randomize where you are. And then you can paint stuff. You can do, but we can share the link and we can all paint the same scene. So if we liked this location, we could totally paint it. Or we could go somewhere else. Find a spot that we like, maybe hit random a few times until we stumble on something kind of neat and say, oh, that's a neat tree, and then we can paint the tree. Or this little swampy area. Or we could travel down the road and see what's down here because it's kind of cool. A road with swamps on either side. It's kind of a neat location. Anyway, so that's what Map Crunch is. Basically virtual plein air painting. But yeah, I think a lot of times when you start painting, at least for me, and this is also the way that I recommend starting painting, is like almost treating it as like you have this very distinct foreground, midground, background, and you basically just make overlapping shapes. So, you know, here's a tree, right? Here's a castle or a house, right? And because you do that, it can feel a little disjointed, where like paper cutout kind of thing. But I've found that it's really nice at some point to kind of treat it like you add some ground plane. So in here, you start adding some, you know, some rivers. You know, maybe you can still have a slope here, but maybe up here you start adding some literal ground plane, like a path or something. That way you're adding form to the space, right? Rather than just keeping it as a two-dimensional shape, you start treating it as, you know, form, like actual, like hills, and, you know, maybe this thing cuts in and goes like that, and, you know, there's shapes and stuff, and like at some point you're adding form to all this, right? So that it sort of feels more three-dimensional, it feels more real. Same for the trees, right? Adding some contours, making sure we're looking up at them. And once you start rendering those, then it will start giving it a little bit more form. So I think sometimes if you just do the paper cutout style, but also it could be like a color thing where like if your background color is, say, and I'll take a look at your example in a second, but if your background color is, say, pink, and your foreground color, you know, or let's say this is pink, and this is green, you know, it might feel a little disjointed, right? And then this is blue, because these colors aren't really relating to each other, right? So this could feel very disjointed. And so sometimes the lighting can help tie it all together, and that's where like a good, you know, some atmospheric perspective and stuff can... Anyway, I don't know if that's quite what you were talking about. But let me take a look. The foreground doesn't really appear closer. I think it does. I mean, there's probably some things... Can I paint on top of this? I don't know if I'm gonna... I probably won't improve it. I might ruin it, but just as a test to see something. Because I don't know if I would have anything of value to add to this, but I do wonder, because sometimes there's lines like this. There's these lines where like you don't have true overlap, right? Like this shape ends up merging into all the rest of that, which is fine. But if there's supposed to be a lot of depth, say between this point and this point, it's hard to read, right? Or especially between like this point and this point. And so sometimes having that overlap, you know, something like that, just introducing some additional overlap or some additional vertical lines, you know, could do something. Or like even pushing these more flat and these would go up, and that way maybe you focus on the silhouette more in the front and less in the background. Something like that might make the foreground seem a little bit more close, possibly, where you just make it larger and you know, the shapes that you use are bigger, whereas the shapes you use in the background are slightly less. Because otherwise, I don't think the foreground feels... here, let me do this. Like, I don't really think your foreground feels not close. I just think that, like, the ratio of this shape to this shape, they're, like, the same size, right? So, like, if we were to make a measurement from, like, here to here, like, it doesn't feel like this is the... Because normally, right, perspective kind of... I'm going to draw right on top of there. Let's do this. Right? Normally, when you have something in perspective, right, if these are all the same size, these lines get closer and closer. And so I think sometimes when you do perspective in environments, you kind of want to, you sort of want to make your shapes also feel like they get smaller and smaller. So like if you were to make this shape feel like that, or in this shape be a little bit bigger, then suddenly the ratios between these shapes kind of has this like big, small, smallest kind of thing. And so there's like those ratios that kind of make it feel like they're getting more and more distant. And again, that's where adding those lines in like here, I mean, again, you don't have to add the line. There could be other types, you know, other form and stuff. But sometimes just adding little lines back here can help push that even further. So obviously it depends on what you're trying to do, but I feel like you can go quite a long way just by adding little like literal sort of like details, but not really, just to help push it more and more. But every line I add is making like another distance being pushed back, right? So not that you need that level of detail here, but it's literally just, I'm just making horizontal lines that all go towards some like hypothetical horizon line, right? And as you go back, it's like, wow, look at all the depth, right? But it's like, it's kind of just a trick. It's a trick of, and same here, right? If you wanted to push this back, you could just add some lines that kind of create that illusion of pushing everything back. And of course, again, silhouette is a big one, right? You're not going to be able to see big silhouette back here, which you did add some, right? You added some stuff back there. But I think you could have done more in the foreground if you wanted. You know, maybe some bigger shapes in the front. I don't know. But anyway, that's kind of how I would have done it, I think. Or that would be one way, I guess, to make that sense of illusion. Similarly, you could have pushed this back even more, probably. Again, depending on what you wanted to do. If it was a matter of depth. But I do like the shape. I like actually the... Anyway. So yeah, no, I like this. Anyway, but I don't know, you know, take everything with a grain of salt, because I don't... You know, I don't quite know what you were going for. I am no master at this. I'm just going by my hunches, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, anyway, hope everyone's doing well today. Thanks for popping in, by the way. But yeah, I think I answered it. But Map Crunch Monday is basically just me painting from Map Crunch. Yeah, virtual plein air. Typically, you know, it's a good reason to make more realistic colors, or, you know, do some simplification exercises where you take a really complex and convoluted scene like this or something, and you sort of have to simplify and decide. We love map. So I don't think Map Crunch Monday is going to be every Monday, and it's not even only going to be on Monday, but when it is on Monday, it's Map Crunch Monday. Hi Casey Snow, hope you're doing well. Yeah, there will probably be map crunching occasionally on Thursdays and Saturdays as well, but yeah, but when we can alliterate, we're gonna alliterate. So today is Map Crunch Monday. Yeah, we love our alliteration for sure. Topographical Thursday. Ooh, that's a mouthful. Also, Casey, I tried to add something, but it doesn't seem to work because I goofed up somewhere. But I can show you what I attempted to do, because I think it's cool and I'm proud of myself, kind of, minus the part where it doesn't work. Let me show you. So I have this thing here. Oh, you can't see it. So I have this thing here called StreamerBot, and I set up this action. It's called Jed Talk Test, and it's supposed to be active, but when I right-click and put Test Trigger, and I'm going to click it in 3, 2, 1, click, and it changes my scene for me. So, and this is based on when people redeem channel points. So there's a channel point redeem that makes it so when it'll change the scene. But it doesn't work because I goofed it up. I think it's not connected to my Twitch somehow. I like, it's connected to my OBS, and you can trigger it on Twitch, but somehow there's a disconnect, I think. Or maybe it's, I don't know. But anyway, it's gonna happen. I love it in theory. Yeah, right? It's the thought that counts. No, it'll work. I will make it work eventually. It is possible. So I've found that much out. I might do it with just a command. There might, maybe no channel points required. But it will be a thing in future streams occasionally. But yeah, how are you, Casey? Hope you're doing well. For those who don't know, Casey's awesome. Go follow her. /shout out Casey Snow Art. Casey says, it must be connected through because it's making the trigger work? Weird. Well, yeah, so it's connected to my OBS. So StreamerBot is connected to my OBS. I just did that before stream, and that was actually the thing I thought wasn't working, but I got it working. And it's weird because my StreamerBot reads chat, so like it's pulling this information. Does that show? No. Right? It's pulling this information, and this is StreamerBot's overlay. So StreamerBot knows that I'm... Whoops, I just minimized something. What just happened? I don't know. StreamerBot knows that I'm on Twitch, and it has my Twitch info. So I think I have to do something else. I think there's some integration issue. Yeah, no, somehow it's only partly connected to Twitch. It's not fully connected to Twitch. I don't know. I gotta look into it. But anyway, it's gonna be a thing. That's the next development on my alerts. Rant times 2. That is a rant. How's it going? Flying Fox, hope you're doing well. Yeah, see, the rant redeem didn't work, but here we go. We'll manually change it. There. So now when I'm ranting about stuff, we'll just have this like this for a bit. Looking forward to it when it's working and we can change your scene. Yeah! The only problem, and this is not really a problem, I mean, it could be if I'm an idiot, but I'd like to think I'm not. So, like, the only problem is that if I have a setting without my webcam, and my webcam is open, and you change a scene to my webcam, it will then go from no webcam to webcam. And, I don't know when that would be bad, but it's just like, you'd have to make sure that people aren't essentially turning on your webcam. So you need to make sure that the thing is down, like this is down if I don't want people, you know, like, because otherwise it would be kind of like a thing to pay attention to. And so I don't know how, you know, changing scenes is kind of, I feel like, a little bit of a sketchy territory of like, that's a lot of control over your stream if you, you know, I don't know. It feels like it could be not ideal, but I think it's okay. So I'm going to risk it because I think it's fine. But it does feel a little weird to know that people could, like, you know. Like, for example, sometimes I'll switch scenes if I'm going to be right back. I'll be like, all right, be right back, and I'll switch the scene to take off my webcam. And then someone else could go and, like, flip it back immediately. And it's like, oh, wait, what? Like, that's weird, kind of? I don't know. Like, the whole point of me switching scenes sometimes is to be on that scene, and if someone has control to switch it out, it doesn't that defeat the purpose? So I don't know if this is the best implementation of it, but there is a lot of options. Might be sketch, yeah, or forget to turn off the stream and the webcam. I mean, no, it wouldn't matter. I don't know. It's definitely something that I'll have to think about, or think about how I want to implement it. But yeah, Casey, what have you been up to lately? I haven't been able to stop by your streams in a while. This scene that I'm painting right now, the only problem with the rant topic, or the rant screen, is that I can't show this. This doesn't quite feel right. I think we need some of those bright clouds in the background. Big poofy clouds. Maybe we can go like this. Let's go like that. Something like that could work. Oh, just trolling away. Mostly trying to get ready to get back into conventions and get your taxes sorted. Oof, taxes. I still haven't done my taxes. I need to do my taxes. I'll probably wait till a very last minute, which it already is, but slightly even more last minute. Luckily, I don't make enough from freelance and Twitch to, like, for it to be like a super nightmare situation. Mostly it's just the Twitch taxes part, and that's it. Obviously, I guess work taxes, like my not what I'm talking about, the 1080 whatever it's called, the basic work form. I'm not in tax mode yet. I don't know the document form numbers, but mostly just the one that I get from my work. Yeah, I don't really have to do much for taxes. Mine's pretty simple most years. I've had a couple years where it's been more complicated. You started the organizing process this weekend, but I have a long way to go. I'm trying to coordinate with a tax person this year because, yeah, I just want to make sure I'm kosher. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, you don't want to get in trouble with anybody. But yeah, I think this is... I like that. I like this this painting that we just did. It's very simple. I cut out a lot of this image. We've added stuff too. Although I think some negative shapes in here would go a long way. Adding little bright spots behind these trees. Could obviously come in here and you know, edit it even more. Oh, Casey, I don't know why I'm talking to you specifically about this, but so last stream I did something that I've never done before. I streamed in a different category. I streamed in a game category while I was doing fan art of the game, because I'm pretty sure that's allowed. unless they've changed it. So I might have been a rule breaker. I don't think I was, though. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's allowed. I mean, I don't know if anybody even came in from the game, so it didn't go well in the sense of, like, success, but I didn't get banned, so I guess that's successful. But yeah, apparently that's a thing. I thought it would be fun to, like, potentially try, like, maybe there would be new people, some new faces who don't typically see the art side of Twitch. But I don't think anybody came in from that side of Twitch, so, Charzia, Flamingo check, thanks. I will sit up straight and proper and not kill my back. But yeah, no, I think I'd like to try that in the future as well if I ever do, like, I don't know, fan art of something, because it does seem like a potentially way to get, like, a different reach. And especially if you're ever, I mean, I'm not really in this position, but if you're ever wanting to do, like, a lot of commissions of, like, a certain fandom, streaming in that thing could bring in people. Yeah, it could potentially bring in people there. Reply the webcam thing. There's an OBS plugin called Clone Source. So if you clone your webcam, it should stay off if you turn your parent webcam off, so there's no shenanigans. Oh, yeah. Sorry. No, so switching scenes won't turn. So my webcam doesn't. How do I word this? First of all, if OBS is closed, then they can't do anything. But also, my webcam isn't on or off. It's only, like, it's either, if there's a program using it, then it's on, and if it's not, then it's off. Like, there isn't a button to turn it off, if that makes sense. So I don't know if that's quite what I'm looking for. It's more that I just need, I don't know. There's probably a way to make a button somehow to, like, kill the signal or something, and to disallow programs from accessing it. That's not my issue, though. My issue is more, like, on stream when my webcam is on, not when the scene is. Oh, you meant visibility of the source? You can flip the parent source off and all the children's source will stay off. Oh, interesting. So does it create, like, a button that you essentially kills it? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I have to look into that. I'm not too worried about that. I don't think that'll be a problem. And my solution is just whenever I'm not using my webcam to flip this little thing down, and so you can't see anything. And we're good because, And I don't use the mic on it, so that's not an issue. There's no sources connected to the mic. But yeah, good to know there's potential solutions. That flip is probably easier. I think it's easier. It's a very easy fix to have a little flip thing. Yeah. I'm pretty low tech with that stuff. Although it's good to know that it exists. Speaking of which, in a slightly less streamer talk discussion, but that whole concept of, like, knowing something exists, that's basically how I define Visual Library, and I mentioned this a couple times in the last few streams, and I think it's just a good way to define it. It's like, it's knowing enough to know how to Google, and I love this definition because so much of, like, when you read a book and you learn something about a topic that the author probably had researched before you, but, like, you're not going to be an expert on it, but you will know it exists, and you might even know what it's called, and suddenly you can Google it, and it's like, it's sort of in your brain enough to know when you don't know something. You're like, oh, I don't know how this thing looks, and I know there's more to it because I remember reading about it. But also, what is it? And then you can go and look it up because you know the name and you know how to Google, and that to me is Visual Library, and I think, yeah. Anyway, I don't know why I brought that up, but that's kind of, like, that's like the Visual Library equivalent of streaming. Like, knowing what's out there, knowing there's programs that exist that do things, knowing what tech and problems people have solved, so that when you run into them, you're like, I remember hearing about this problem. I can solve this because the solution is out there, right? And so that's kind of, I don't know, it feels very adjacent. You're so late. No, you're not too late. Also, your clocks haven't changed. Mine has. My clock has changed. I've only been streaming for not even 2 hours. So, Omi on YouTube, you are totally okay. Clock changes have goof up some stuff. But yeah, we're doing some Map Crunch Monday, as we decided it was called. Do I ever make extensive use of technology or tools? For art? Digital. Is that an extensive use of a tool? This brush that I'm using by Zach Retz, I make extensive use of that. Other than reference image boards? No, not really. There have been times where I've gone into like I am capable of making SketchUp models. So if I need to do like hard surface stuff with lighting, technically I could go in and make some models, some hard surface models, throw a light on it, get the shadow information, get some, you know, very basic lighting info, and then I could do a paint over. Technically I can use ZBrush if I ever needed to. I don't really make use of ZBrush ever though, because sculpting is hard. But I have in the past, so I kind of know my way around it a little bit. Although I would probably have to look up tutorials again, just to like... Did I ever use it? No, not really. It's not integrated into my workflow. Let's see. There's a lot of stuff that I'm aware of, and I've kind of opened it up and I've looked at it, and so it's like I'm aware of its existence, and if I ever need to know how to figure things out, I can do it. So like if something came across, you know, I'm going to say my desk. I don't like that phrase though. But if something ever came across my desk where I'm like, I don't know how to do this, but like I kind of do, and I'm confident enough I could do it because I've dabbled, so to speak, in various programs and different workflows. You know, like I've photo bashed before, and I have used that in art. And so, you know, if something was like get some rough textures on there, some photo textures, I can do it. I know the process. But no, mostly in my actual painting, I pretty much just paint. I just paint. I don't actually use those other things. Casey says, I like that definition. I think, yeah, it's like a resource in your head. You don't know everything, but you know enough to be more than just basically aware that it exists. I mean, sometimes you don't even know to like do a thing because it's not even on your radar, right? And I think this is where people get in trouble with design, is like, you just don't know enough to even know what you don't know. And Googling something isn't always going to helpful because you're only looking at the thing that you know. But if you don't know what you're supposed to look up, then it's like, it's just a complete gap in your knowledge. And sometimes even Googling isn't going to solve that, right? And that's where I think Visual Library lets you sort of go beyond just the basics. It's like, oh, I've actually have experience with this thing. And it can also just be like, I also think there's like a pattern recognition type thing aspect to it, where it's not just like, for example, if you were gonna do like I remember looking at a Ghibli scene, and I think it was like of a, you know, person, I don't know, some probably school student's room, they were studying, and they were like putting in long hours or something, and like they got up from their seat and it like squeaked across the floor, and there was like these marks on the floor where like the chair was, you know, so they have a chair, and you know, the floor, but there was like these marks essentially where it's like, also you can't tell what this is, hold on, this is a chair, but like the wood floor, right? It was a wood floor. Let's go the other way. Right? And the wood floor had like, you know, like damage because the chair, you could tell it was, you know, pushed across the floor. Like, that's something that you probably have seen, right? You're not unaware of its existence. Also, this is not in perspective. Holy moly, this chair is drawn poorly, right? I don't know why I drew it like that. There. Now we're at very low angle. But like, it's probably something that you're aware can happen if you have a wood floor. You're aware wood floors can get scratched. But I think there's also just an element of like, sometimes people who are designing things are aware of thinking about like materials and wear and tear. And so it's not, I don't even know if that's Visual Library. I don't know what you call that, but that's like being aware of a thing and working it into your workflow. So, like, yes, materials can wear and tear. Let's think about that, you know? It's not that, like... Because if you were to Google, like, wood floor or something, you probably wouldn't think about that, right? Because it probably wouldn't even pop up in a reference. But if you actually walk through mentally of how you might scoot your chair back before you get up, suddenly it's like, oh, there's that wear and tear, you know? There's the noise that it's gonna make. There's, right? It's sort of thinking about how the space is actually used. And part of that's like knowing how the space is actually used, but some of it's just like just remembering to think about it, right? And I think that's something that I think you get with experience and like practicing doing design, where you just start practicing thinking about this kind of stuff, right? You start thinking about how the space is used. So I think there's kind of multiple aspects of Visual Library, because I don't think it's just what you know. It's also like the design process and your problem-solving skills of like being curious enough about how something is used to like, then you could go and look it up, like, ooh, old damaged wood floors. But obviously you know that wood floors can be damaged, like, no one's going to pretend you don't know that, but would you include it in a design? Probably not if you weren't thinking about it. And so, like, training yourself to think about those things, I think that's the hard part. I don't know. I don't know how that ties into Creative Library. Or Visual Library, I mean. I feel like it's closely related in that it's a thing that may not be on your radar until it is, and you're trying to have a process or a workflow that will get it on your radar so that you can incorporate it into your design if you need, or if you want to. Anyway, let's do another sketch. Okay, so Monday map crunch Monday. Oh, hold on, one more comment. Casey says, I like calling it a creative bank account. Yeah, it's not all Visual Library, it's a mental collection of all. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of like design related stuff though comes down to like learning to ask certain types of questions. Like the who, what, where, when, why, how sort of stuff. Like if it's a character, you got to think about who are they, what are they doing, what were they doing before this scene, what are they going to do after, how might these things influence how they appear in this scene, right? Like it's more just like general design and idea development skills, kind of. But yeah, also Visual Library is included in that because that's going to help problem solve. I don't know. There's a lot of cool stuff to do. Also, we're getting rated by Ron. Hi, Ron. Hi, Ronald P. Maxwell. How's it going? I don't know why I said your name like that. Welcome in, Ronald P. Maxwell. Let me do the shout out. Shout out, Ronald P. Maxwell. Oh, hey there. Doing good. Nice. Glad to hear it. We are doing some Map Crunch Monday, where we crunch the maps on Monday. No, basically it's just virtual plein air painting. Like this. I like this scene. I know it doesn't seem that complex. Also, there's totally a car there. Not suspicious at all. I like this scene. You know why I like this scene? Because of the dust. The dust is cool. I don't know, like, this dust is neat. I don't know why, it's just, it's very cool to me. So we're gonna paint some dust. A dusty road. Maybe we'll go down the road a bit and see what's causing all that dust. Where's all this dust coming from? Also, that's a beautiful scene. Look at these tracks here in the road. I don't know why, but that's gorgeous. This super dusty, this very, very dusty dirt road. That is that's an idyllic scene right there. That car sped down and crashed? No, you think? I don't think they did. I don't think that's a crashed car. I think it's just a super dry, dusty road, and there must have been a car that passed through here in the last bit. Also, that's upsetting. For such a nice scenery, it's upsetting that there's just trash everywhere. I don't like that. That really kills the vibe for me. Otherwise, this would be so gorgeous. Let's go down the road a bit more. Ron has some art. Let's take a look, Ron. Here's one of the creatures we drew today. Spawn of Chaos. Ooh, that's cool. I like how chaotic it is, and that's perfectly fitting for the name. Casey says, yeah, design of any kind is basically asking as many questions as possible and having enough of those of a repertoire to answer those questions or knowing where to find answers. Yeah, and like I think a lot of like as you get better designing, right, you learn better types of questions to answer. It's sort of like this is why I think this is very similar to, I mean, I realize I'm jumping all around in topics here, but this reminds me a little bit of like topics around creativity of like that. I know that's like probably an annoying topic for some people, but like how do you find creative ideas, right? And like a lot of times it's just literally methods and having like a repertoire of knowing how to ask certain types of questions that will give interesting results. Like it's not always like the, you know, having this stroke of brilliance or anything. It's literally just like, oh, what if this thing and this thing, you know, interacted, and what would happen, you know? What would this character do if they were put in an environment that they're unfamiliar with, you know? Or how, like, I don't know, just like really just basic stuff kind of. Like it's not crazy, but it's just then you start answering those questions and suddenly you get into an area that feels new and creative. It feels very similar to that. It's just like designing and asking the questions, but also learning what questions to ask, and by seeing what other questions other people have asked. Yeah, anyway. I like this. I like the colors. I like the blues and the oranges, the cools and the warms. This is very cool. Nice work, Ron. I appreciate it, and thank you so much for the raid. You said, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I wanted something that the more you look at, the less certain you feel. Or the less certain of it you feel. Yeah, I like it. There's a lot of really cool stuff in here. For sure. Okay, I want to paint this dusty old road. Also, I really like the warms and cools. So for a painting like this, I would just start out with... I mean, actually, we could probably do this. Just almost like a two-tone graphical approach of just like light and shadow. Maybe we'll go a little bit blue in here. I mean, maybe we'll go a little darker in the foreground. Probably don't even need to. I'm gonna push those blues, though, a little bit. And then we get some shapes in here. And some shapes in here. I don't normally completely work this way, but it's kind of fun. Is this a custom brush? This is a brush by the artist Zach Retz. It is a custom brush, but not by me. It's a nice brush. It has some good texture, which is nice for like tree type stuff like this, where you want those shapes poking through. Yeah, it's a pretty. I like it. It's a nice brush. It has some texture, but also you don't have to have texture on it when you paint, because depending on how fast you paint and how many times you go over the stroke, it has some other stuff. Yeah, I don't normally work like this, but it's kind of a fun way to sort of try to see in sort of two tones. Sort of an exercise, a little bit of a different exercise than I would normally do. And then here, there's like another white layer. There. I like that. That's a nice thing. And then there's some signposts, not signs, some fence posts over here. Very two-tone. This is very different than I would normally paint, but I like this way of doing it. And we could come in here and add some other additional dark shapes. Maybe some darker green blues for where the foliage is. Maybe here. And I think that the way I like working this way, kind of, even though I don't work this way very often, is kind of fun because you kind of get to like focus on designing the shapes a little bit. So like I know there's this little dark spot here in this little triangle shape. If you kind of squint, you can see it as a triangle. But it's not a perfect triangle, right? Because like on this edge especially, there's a lot of like texture and shapes, and it gets a really blurry kind of. And so you can, in this edge, I feel like you could start with a triangle, but maybe you want to come in here and design little chunks taken out of it. You know, just additional little shapes. Although I don't want to get too nitty-gritty there, because that's not... But yeah, this is a... Here, actually, I have a link to the brush. Brushes. There we go. That last link is a link to this brush. Zach Retz is the artist. And this is quite dark here. Is that in the foreground? This is in the foreground, isn't it? I can't actually tell. I don't like zooming in to tell, but okay, it is. So this is also foreground, this dark thing. I'm gonna try to make it look even more in the foreground than this image has it. And some little dappled light on the ground. Normally I wouldn't do dappled light at this stage, but I think it's worth it because I like the lighting. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take I'm going to do a color layer and see how this works. So I don't know if this is going to work well. It may not, but that's okay. Not everything needs to work well. This is kind of an experiment. What if I do an overlay? Because I know, for example, this color here is too bright. But I do want to put in some of this warm color shining through. And I think what's going to make this stuff look really foggy is that you get this warmth, this warm glow, even though it's like kind of in the shadows, it's filling up the air, so you actually have like an actual substance. So there are warm bits here. Maybe this is a bit more green. This doesn't quite feel right. Trying to add some warmth here. More green, more greenish yellow, or yeah, like a yellow green to this stuff. I like that. That's a nice feeling. I mean, if you kind of squint, it's almost like it's very abstract, right? But I think it kind of reads well. I think there's a vibe, there's a mood that I'm liking. Right? There's very little details. It's all just shapes. But I think that's nice. Maybe some purples in the shadows in here. It has a bit of a purple color to me. You can make out the ground plane? Yeah. Anything with a ground plane is nice. So this doesn't actually have purple in it. But it kind of feels like it does. It's hard to explain, and so I'm adding some purple. Okay, now I'm going to come in here, because obviously this is not a big solid white shape, right? Obviously in our painting, this is a... There's color here, right? And so I get to decide how much color and what color, because I didn't paint it in multi tones, right? I painted in basically just black and white, or kind of. I had more nuance in the shadow, but now that I'm painting the light, there's a lot less nuance, or there's a lot more nuance, and so I'm kind of trying to come in here and add some of that nuance back. Some of that dusty stuff. I don't know if this is going to read as dusty or not. I hope it does. I think I can get there if I'm careful. And back here, there's little hints of, like, plants and stuff sticking up. Again, I can hardly make them out, and I'm not zooming in to do it. This is more about the vibe. Also, this spot here is very yellowy orange. Right? This is not... just more gray than that. A little bit of a path here. I made my screen black and white. This is another thing. Sometimes when you know that your colors are kind of okay-ish, you can come in here and start, you know, making certain parts of it more clear. I'm using the Windows command, Control Windows C. You can turn it on in your color filter settings. So if you hit what do you call it? Windows mode, and then start typing color filters. There's this button here. You can click it. It'll open up this page, and you can toggle it on and off by using the hotkey. But first, you have to make sure it's allowed. So you need to make sure this is clicked. This is in Windows computers. Click this setting, and then you can toggle it on and off, and it'll make your screen grayscale. Super useful. That's what I use. Sometimes when I get at a certain point, and I already have my values and my colors correct, I can turn it to grayscale to, like, just focus on, like, for example, making this shape a little bit more shapy. And that way I'm not focused on the colors, I'm just focused on the shapes and the values. Especially if you already have, like, warm and cool separation in your shadows. So like if I pick a warm color over here and paint in, it's gonna probably work. What else? These trees can go way more shapy. Hey Joe, I'm Unlurking, just posted a crunch in Sketches and Work in Progress. I love that. I just posted a crunch. So that's a window feature, turning it grayscale. Yeah, this is a Windows feature. Technically, you can do it in Clip Studio, or in any other program. But yeah, it is a Windows feature. I think there's a way to do it in Mac, but I couldn't tell you how. Or in Apple products. Beats, how are you? Thanks for the lurk. And yeah, let me take a look. Let's open up the Discord. Go into the chord. Go into the sketches. Let's take a look. Ooh, I like it. This is the one with the person. How to go at the map crunch. It needs something to finish it off, but I have no idea what I'm doing with watercolors. Digital Rebel. Oh, this is so nice. This is really nice. I can tell exactly. Yeah, so for those who don't know, this is the, if you go to Map Crunch and just hit refresh, this is the Map Crunch of the day scene. Boom, there we are. Actually, I think the scene that was this one. I think it's this person. Oh. Where's the other person? Wait, there's a person. Hold on. You must have been over here. Oops. So that's what you were looking at. You were over here, right? And you were... Also, this is gorgeous. I just realized this scene. So you must have flipped it. You got a flipped image. I'll let you, detective. Yeah, I think you were flip-flopped. You might have been more down the street. I guess it's possible you were more down the street. I am trying to detective here. You could have been over down the street more, and this old man could have walked down. But you could have also flipped it, and I don't know which was which. Part of me thinks you flipped it, right? Part of me thinks this is what you painted, but you flipped it. But also, if you go down here enough, because the car is not over here at this time, right? Yeah, I think you flipped it. That's okay. Flipping it's allowed. But no, this is a very cool scene. And no, you did a great job. You did a great job with it. Oh, I keep bringing up mine, not yours. But yeah, no, I like this. Very nicely done. I like the painterliness of it, the watercolor look of the colors bleeding together. That's a really cool feature of Rebel. And I technically a lot of programs can do that, but I don't know how. I do have a brush that does some blurry stuff, but not quite like this. Not this watercolor look. This is nice. I like this a lot. You did a good job. Oop. What happened? Where did my art go? Oh, there we go. Back to painting. So yeah, I'm gonna try and make it dusty looking by... I mean, it kind of looks dusty already. But yeah, I want to make these trees back here more tree-shaped. A little bit more... A little bit more texture. They don't need it, right? This kind of stuff doesn't need more texture. But it can be kind of fun. Texture is also a point in your painting where you can blur the texture to give an effect like a dust or mist or something. So sometimes having the texture will then allow you to get rid of it in certain distinct spots. So like if there's a lot of dust here, right, I can be loosey-goosey on the texture here and more crisp on the texture on the outside. And so, yeah, sometimes just painting the texture is nice. And typically, you know, bigger shapes in the foreground as they get closer. or not necessarily, but like not compositional shapes, but like detail shapes, right? Like the leaves, you'll have bigger leaves in the foreground because they're the same trees than the leaves in the back. Anyway, I'm liking this. I feel like we're getting a sense of it. It's not too shabby. Also, no flipping, just went further down the road. Oh, interesting. Okay, gotcha. I would have never guessed. Gotta run. I'm starving. I'll be lurking, though. Oh, thank you for the lurk. And yeah, take care. Enjoy your food, whatever you end up getting. Happy eating. Yeah, like I want to put something right here in the road just to block it off a bit. I like this. I'm happy with this painting. It's, yeah. I wonder if there's a way to be a bit more expressive with these shapes back here. Just kind of like scratchy, chicken scratchy. Maybe it's a texture brush. Because it's a lot of like, that's kind of what you feel, right? You feel a lot of like small shapes. It's very dusty and there's lots of twigs and sticks and stuff sticking up. And so, like, is there a way to have these like scratch marks, you know? Just kind of almost like scribbles, rather than intentional designs. The purple spicy, yeah, I'm enjoying it. You know, there's some dead branches in here that are like kind of a grayish color. You know, just little things in the foreground all over. You know, some stuff over here. I think there's some stuff over there. Right? So, for example, in this, if you look in here, there's just so much stuff, right? There's just a texture. It's not perfectly shapy, right? There's just lots of stuff. There's some blues, some light blues that kind of stand out a little bit, where almost saturated, like on the leaves that are leaf facing the ground, right? Probably some in here too. Lots of little dark spaces in the foreground. Right, and then over here, for example, there's, you know, little patches of bits of green and bright, right? So there's some greener spots in here, but then there's like little highlights. Not that I need to put those highlights, but you know, just little bits of light here and there. Maybe little bits of bright, nearly bright white in the foreground here. And these are like on on leaves. I don't know. That might be too much because that's the rest of this scene doesn't have that. Actually, that is too much. Maybe there's more of it over here though. If we go back over here, I guess there's some over here. There's some brighter spots over here. Dappled light, yeah, dappled light. Well, this is dappled light. This stuff, this I think is just literally direct light, right? I don't think that's dappled. That's just full on. These things are in light. Maybe it is dappled light. I don't know. But this, yeah, for sure. These are just like, yeah, lots of dappled light's almost always soft, right? As far as the way that it works, it tends to be soft light, and so you have soft edges. Whereas like hard direct light will have light on the object as hard edge, and then if it's a cast shadow, it'll be a hard edge as well, typically, although it could have soft edges, I think. But yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of little specks of light in here where these things are catching the sun. Yeah, there's some dappled light in here for sure. I like it though. I think it adds to the... Yeah. I like it. Again, there's some specks in here too. Well, yeah, so I think of, like, typically when you have, like, because dappled light is not just light shining. So if you just had a leaf, right? Let's say here's a leaf. We're going to make a leaf that's pointy. This is a leaf. Here's a leaf. Totally not leaf shape, but here's a leaf. If you had the ground underneath, and if you were to shine a light on the leaf, you're going to get a shape, right? You're going to get a shape of the leaf. The leaf is going to cast a shadow, and it's more or less going to be a hard edge. It's not going to be soft. Dappled light is kind of like a... I believe it's more like almost like a pinhole camera effect, where you have, like, projections essentially of the sun. Maybe I'm wrong here, but it's shining through the leaves in essentially like pinhole cameras, and it's basically making these little soft round shapes. It's not just shadows of the leaves, they're distinct circles. And so you get these, like, it's not just a cast shadow, and then, like, you have some spaces that aren't in light. It's more of a soft diffuse thing. And so sometimes when you have, like, you know, leaves that are fully in light, I think of those as like, okay, that's just a hard, those are just in light. But when you have little things on the ground like this, those to me are, that's what I think of as dappled light, and I treat it differently. I treat this as like a smudgy, blurry, circular shape. It's not some complex thing with lots of hard, angular shapes that are projections of the leaves. Like, sometimes you do see that, right? You do see just literally tons of cast shadows. But a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's literally just these smudgy, blurry circles. And I think there's a difference in like... Sorry, this is a mess, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. So yeah, no, I do think of the lighting differently. It's probably not the only way to think of it. There's probably lots of ways to think of it. Certainly, my way is not the right way. Or the wrong way, probably. Maybe. Maybe it is the wrong way. I don't know. Some of these could be a little darker, but I don't want it to be too dark. Like, in our photo, they're almost as dark, right? Like, this is almost as dark. But I don't want this as dark, right? That doesn't... To me, this doesn't feel right. It feels like it would not be as dark. And so I'm not making it as dark. And I say that partly from experience of painting environments, and I know that I want a lot of atmospheric perspective because it is dusty and fog, and yeah, dusty. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not an expert at that. I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure dappled light often essentially is having a pinhole camera effect. And it's not just like a lattice or something that you're shining a light through that's making a pattern of the leaves underneath. Like, it's yeah, I think. Could be wrong. And once the light gets, like, is shining through those small of gaps, it's at some point, it becomes, it's not, like, the shape. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I think sometimes, like, when you have, like, for example, if you had a light coming from here. Oh, let me draw this. I don't think I was explaining this very well. But if you have a light coming from, let's say, this side, and all of this was on light, you know, all of the... Here, I'm going to draw in pink, right? If all of the light was lighting these leaves from this backside, you might, in theory, see shadows that look like this, right? You would essentially have light here, and these things would cast shadows, right? You'd see the branches. This is not dappled light, right? This is the shape that you're seeing in the negative space. You know, maybe you do have, you know, some branches like this or whatever, and it's creating these little gaps and these holes. That's still not dappled light. That, to me, is just a cast shadow of this. Dappled light is more of, like, essentially a pinhole camera, and it's creating these little blown out circular thingies. Now, I think sometimes it's like a mix, probably. You do see, like... Yeah, they get diffused by distance. And also... I think it is, but also I think sometimes there are distinct circles. I think it's probably a bit of both, right? Because you do see like shapes in here that are like there's probably a branch. But sometimes, yeah, it's just like little specks, and the specks are just. I mean, I think it's probably both, but I guess for me, I just don't think of them as cast shadows as much. I think of it as a distinct thing, but I don't know. It probably is still technically a form of cast shadow, or the opposite of cast shadow, which is this is the cast shadow, and then the pinhole light or the light is the negative space. But I don't know. I guess I just think of it as a different thing, but it could be the same thing. I don't know. I guess whatever helps you sleep at night. No, I think whatever helps you, understand it and have a concept in your head that helps you paint it and make choices. That's something that I've been big on lately, probably because of my addiction to a game called Teamfight Tactics, where like it's almost like poker in a way, where like the key skill is just learning to make a good choices, regardless of whether you win or lose. And I think in art, like it's complex, right? And learning to make choices is hard because sometimes you make a good choice but you execute it poorly, and sometimes you make a bad choice and you also execute it poorly. And like you don't really know. Like it's hard to know. Like so sometimes it's more about just like your framework. Like your framework of making choices, thinking about things, and I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think in art it gets really like it can get really complex, and so just having some structured way of thinking about things is helpful, so that when you have to make a choice, you have some direction of how you're going to make that choice. It doesn't have to be the best choice or the best way to, there's lots of different ways to think about something, but I think sometimes just having these different mental models or different frameworks for a concept will help you sort of make a decision when you need to, right? Oh, I need to make the sky a blue, but also this sky's not blue. Well, what do I do there? Do I make it more blue, or do I make it less blue, or like why might it look this way? Well, there's lots of ways to think about that, right? And you could think about that as like the sun is just so bright that it's blowing everything out to white, or you could think of it from a photographer's point of view and be like, it's probably how much exposure is on the camera, right? Like both of those are valid ways of thinking about it, and both can help you make choices, but they're kind of different perspectives. One's more about the camera and the choice, and the other is about the intensity of the light. And it's, one's not right or wrong, but they might, having those different perspectives can help you make a choice. Do I want the light to seem super bright? Let's make the sky really bright. Maybe it's not that bright, and so we'll make it a little bit more blue. I don't know, different ways of thinking about things is good. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna move on from this painting and do another little sketch, because I like this one. We could have probably added more grime, not grime, but like stuff. Stuff like this, little dark spots in here. But yeah, and I think when you're doing plein air painting, the same is, I mean, this isn't totally plein air painting. You still got the pinks? Yeah, I got the pink. Oh, I got the pinks in the, oh no. Okay, there we go. The pinks are gone. I thought you meant these pinks. I thought, yeah, I want those pinks. Yeah. Sorry, sometimes I do that. Okay, that's fine. Let's do another place. Map crunch. Let's go. Let's spin that crunch. This is a flat field of something. Kind of nice. There's some cool mountains or hills. I like that. Definitely some stuff we could take away from this and paint. These textured hills in the background with the layers. There's like a cliff here. In fact, this is like a shape that I might draw even in my... I mean, I'm not going to do a full-on painting of this, but this is a good example of, like, when I'm painting fantasy landscapes, this is kind of sort of stuff that I, in some ways, am thinking about. This type of scene is real easy to paint. So I'm going to do a very quick one here, but this one you could probably knock out in like 5... Actually, I'm going to do it. What if I set a timer and see how long it takes me to get something that I'm happy with? I think I could paint this in I don't know, 2 minutes. Let me try. I'm going to try to speed paint this one. I'm not going to put a timer counting down. I'm going to put a timer counting up, I think. Or no, I can't. Okay, I'm going to try to get this done in 5 minutes. Just for fun. No real reason. Oh. In like 20 brushstrokes? Well, I mean, I'll try to not... I'm not going to... I mean, I could try 20 brushstrokes. I mean, 20 shapes maybe. But like, does lasso tool count as a brushstroke? I don't know how that works. Yeah, no, I mean, so what I'll probably do, and I'm not going to do exactly this scene because there's some stuff that I like about it that I'm going to try to get. So here, let's start. Let's just start the timer. I don't know what the timer's for, really. I'm not going to really look at it. So, but I'm thinking just big, bright blue sky, right? A little bit of blue. So this is going to be that. Here, this is the one brush stroke. Just go like that. Then I'm going to do a layer of kind of darker gray yellow, I think. Like that. It's not super dark, but this is going to have a purpose. And then I'm going to do a lighter blue version that I'm going to mix with this. So like that color. This isn't technically... This is kind of the same brush stroke, but not really. And then I'm mixing these. So kind of still the same. Probably not blue enough, honestly, but so I'm just going to lightly paint blue over this. A blue-white. Some color correcting there. So now that I have that base, I'm just going to do some... I'm not trying to be efficient here. Not really. But I'm going to paint some of this yellow layer. So I'm just going to put some here. I'm going to leave some of that poking through. And this is where the lasso tool is going to be nice. I'm going to come in here and make some shapes. Like this. Do I want some more down here, maybe? Maybe like that. And I'm going to take like a little bit brighter color. And do that. And then I'm going to take a little bit of a darker color, like a darker blue, and paint in here. And just going back over this. And I feel like that is kind of what I was intending to do. Pretty much just that. Doesn't quite have that form, but it kind of has a little bit of that vibe that I was trying to go for. Again, not trying to be perfectly accurate, but more of just like these little bits of like light on top. Anyway, there's that. I'm done. I don't know, was that how long? 2 minutes? That's as far as I need to go. Again, I could add some details in here that are smaller shapes. Some scribbles. I think I think that's not bad. I do like this little, like, zigzaggy thing, though. But see, yeah, because here, I'm gonna pause the timer, because I'm gonna do something. Okay, timer's stopped. And now we can turn it off. Because now, this is where, like, fantasy environment me takes over. And I'm like, what if this shape was like, you know, an arch? And there is this thing coming up here. You know, and there is this thing. Or maybe it wasn't an arch. Maybe this shape was like a tower. Right? And then over here, this was over there, you know, something like that. I don't know, I'm just trying to carve this out into be a fun shape. And then maybe there's some bluer colors over here in the foreground. But I like this way of painting because this is very much like the kind of simple landform with just a little bit of like atmospheric, you know, ambient light in there, but also a little bit of directional light. I mean, directional ambient light, I guess. You know, there's not a whole lot of stuff going on in there, but it's nice, right? There's a lot of, you can still play with form. You get to show those like those arches on top, little plateau areas, or like you could almost imagine like buildings being or something. Anyway, kind of cool. And yeah, maybe there's some foreground stuff now. Of course, there's these little darker spots in the foreground. Maybe there's little things here. Little rocks and stones. Very fantasy-ish. Little stones leading in there. But all based on the same color palette. I think even also in the foreground, right? We were talking about this earlier with like, you know, making the foreground light or dark. I think here is a good example where you could just crank it up a bit and make it even brighter. But not everywhere, you know, so you still get those bright lights. But there's some of those dark textured patterns. I think that's something that's hard for people doing environment, because you learn about atmospheric perspective, and you learn this whole concept of like the foreground is darker than the background, right? Well, like, what about this scene, right? This scene isn't. This scene, the midground is darker, but that's because the midground is in shadow. And also it might be stone, and maybe the foreground is grass, and, you know, maybe the stone is darker than the grass. But like, but if everything were equal, right, you do have a darker foreground. It's just in the shadows, and if you were to zoom in, right, the darkest shadows, the occluded areas, deep dark, It would be. This pixel down here, maybe not in this photo, but like in theory, a deep dark shadow here would be darker than the same deep dark shadow back here, right? But the problem is sometimes the foreground's in light. Sometimes the foreground has no shadows. Sometimes the shadows are actually just darker back here because there's less light back there. Like if under a grove of trees versus, you know, under a tiny little thing of leaves or grass, right? And so, but if everything is equal, you can kind of think of it as like those shadows do exist in the foreground, even if the foreground's in light. It's just they're being hidden right now. If you were to put something in the foreground that cast a shadow or had a big dark hole in it, that hole would be darker, right? You just don't always have that. And so I feel like the atmospheric thing is like the most like fundamental thing, but then you have all this other stuff piled on top. You have materials, you have different colors of objects, you have different amounts of direct light, like, you know, sunlight blasting in, you have bounce light, you have all this other stuff piled up. But somewhere way down there, you do have that sort of fundamental principle of atmospheric perspective that's going to make things get lighter and more the color of the atmosphere, in this case a blue sky, more blue and more light as it goes further back. But it's all kind of like buried under all these other things that are more important, more obvious. And so I feel like it's one of those things where there's almost more exceptions than there are rules, but the rule is still holds true. Like it is there. It's just in actual reality, it's complex and it's messy and yeah. So I love it. I think it's one of those cool things where like you learn about it and you can see it, and when you start painting with it, it's awesome and it makes your paintings better. But then as you paint it, you're like, wait a second, this doesn't follow that rule. Neither does this or this. And it's like, wait, what's happening? And you have to like relearn stuff. Anyway, I love it. Your losing feels a bit like fog. You're lassoing. Oh yeah, this right here. Yeah, a little bit. With the bluish. It does look like a bit like fog. And in fact, if we were to make it a little bit more... Oh, you mean the foreground stuff. Yeah, a little bit. This, if we were to make it more bright, it would look like water, I think. Which is cool. We could totally do a watery, like a river here. Yeah, the foreground does have like a foggy feel to it, doesn't it? It could also be like a wheat field or something, right? Sometimes I like to, again, so I don't typically paint fields like this because there isn't enough deep darks. I actually like to, this is one of the reasons why I like wheat fields, is because you can get these like dark occluded areas between the wheat. And because it sticks up more and there's more areas to have shadows. But you can also still have those brights. So you can go in with those bright brushes and, you know, add a lot of little bright highlights and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, this kind of scene is right up my alley. But I do like using references like this for that because it kind of has that, like, I think this is a good way to use references, right? You can use it and you can paint your own things, right? You can make your own shapes and your own whatever you want to paint. But you're using this as the base sort of like colors and atmospheric effects and yeah. It's definitely a midground adding the illusion, yeah. Adding to the illusion is a good way to put it. So much of painting is just making illusions. Illusions of scale and, you know, bigger shapes that I'm making, like these rock thingies in the foreground, and they're smaller in the background. you know, the illusions of wheat because I'm putting these little strands in the foreground, but with these little dark shadows in there. Or grass, doesn't have to be wheat. But anyway, yeah. This is fun. Now I could also put some more like bright lights up here for the shadows, or for the... These aren't shadows, these are clouds. That's the word. Nothing, it ties it together, just, I think, super nicely. Some horizontal ones near the horizon, as you see in the photo. There, that's like, to me, that's a nice, like, fantasy thumbnail, kind of. Using this as a reference of color and even shape to some degree, but mostly, like, I think a lot of people would not think of this as, like, oh, that's a reference. But, like, that's a way to use reference. You could also see this and be like, oh, that's very blue. And maybe we want to push these shadows a little bit more blue. Or it's almost more purple. Right? So you could actually come in here a bit and add some of that purple in the shadows. I think that would make it look quite nice. Yeah, they're more purple, actually. Yeah, they're almost purple. I mean, yeah, they do feel very blue. And yeah, we can do that. We can push that. We could even push the sky a little purple if we wanted. Again, reference doesn't mean the thing that you're painting necessarily. But yeah, we could do a little bit of purple. We could push the foreground to be a little bit more orange if we wanted. Whoops. What did I do there? Not that I want to make this orange, but you could. Orange sky. No. Anyway, I like that. I'm gonna erase a little bit of that blue purple because I think I did overkill. But yeah, anyway, that's a fun one. I'm having fun today. Little plein air paintings. This one is my least favorite, although funny enough, this rock here, or not this rock, this car is very, how do I say it, out of perspective. Oh, it has no door handles either. Let's add some door handles. Sorry, I'm jumping back and forth. This is the one we started with. Nothing's finishes up the car like a good bit of details. Oh, we actually have a mirror here that I didn't even see. Like, I saw the mirror holder, but I didn't actually see the mirror itself. I'm gonna make it pass over the... So I'm jumping around. Going back to our car painting. I hope everyone's doing well today still. If there's anyone lurking, thank you for lurking. I do wonder, I think I should do more of this stuff on stream. What do you guys think? More of like the fantasy stuff where you take a reference and sort of reinterpret it into like your own shapes? Because like this is obviously not the same thing. I've scaled up, you know, instead of these little mounds of dirt or whatever, I've made them like big rocks or something. Also, there's little flowers in there that I didn't even see. You could always put in little speckles of stuff. Stuff like that. Little just highlights or flowers. But I think it's nice. I think this kind of thing it gives a good impression of a place. This one is not good. I like the scene, but I don't like the feeling of what I've done. And obviously this is way off center. This is like a weird, almost like a panoramic view, and I'm not painting that. Actually, we're gonna nudge this direction. And maybe I add some trees over here. Maybe there's we'll paint this little car over here. It's funny to paint a car this small and try and make it feel like a car without details. There's this tendency to want to zoom in, but like at the same time, if I zoom into this car, shouldn't I zoom into every tree and leaf and everything? Like, you know? Or like sometimes if you like this happened in this image where I'm painting this thing here in the foreground and I couldn't tell if it was actually in the foreground or if it was just dark. But once I zoom in and like, oh, it is in the foreground, then I end up making this one look distinctly in the foreground, right? And in some cases, I want it to look more in the foreground because this was confusing. But on the other hand, if it were a detail, do I really want to have the detail stand out? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's... Sometimes the impression is the, like, the selling point in a way. And I think it's a little tricky to, like... There's this tendency to want to, you know, look into the details because you need to know how to paint it. But, like, if you paint it the way based on what the details are, then it's not going to look right because the way that you actually saw it wasn't with details, right? You just saw, like, a thing and you're like, what is it? How do I paint it without knowing what the details are? Well, you paint it like a blob because that's what you see. And I think it's a trick. That's such a... it's very hard, you know, even as someone who doesn't do a lot of details, it's very hard to not paint a thing when you can't see it, right? Like, there's this tendency to want to zoom into this car because I don't know what the heck it looks like. But that's the point. Just a tiny little car. Little blob here of white, which is probably the license plate. There's a bigger shape of dark, and then a small shape on top of white. It's a bit of back and forth, right? You need to zoom in to fully understand it so you can make it the right choice. Well, not always. No, sometimes. So I think there's two problems, right? Or I just laid out two problems. Also, thank you for the follow. So I think I just laid out two problems. Two distinct problems that sound very similar. One is I can't understand what it is in the photo, and that's making it a bad image, right? Like a bad composition, right? Like in this image, or this painting, or this that painting, and this photo, right? In this one, not being able to tell that this is a foreground tree and not a dark background shadow, like this is a dark background shadow here, and knowing that this is a foreground shadow tree in the shadow and not a background one when you're zoomed out, that's because there's a tangent, right? You have a tangent of this bright line it's eye level, right? There's this bright line here, and it keeps going underneath this tree, and it just continues over, right? So the way you would solve that, right, that's not a detail problem, that's a clarity issue, right? The way you might solve that is if you have this bright line here, just make sure the tree crosses in front and behind it, right? That would solve your problem. Because now you can still put some light back here, but now you know that this thing has to pass both in front. It can't be background, right? Because it's in front of your eye level. So this, because it stopped right at your eye level, it could have been in the background, right? This could be a background shape because it's at our eye level. So in this case, I think zooming in to understand, oh, this is something that needs fixing, not I'm going to paint it wrong or I'm going to paint it confusingly, because this is confusing. This isn't like, it's not a matter of I need to paint the details. This is I need to understand what it is. But I think in the cars example, this is different. If all you see when you look at it is enough to know it's a car, you don't need to know, is it one door or two doors? Does it matter? If you can't tell, you can't tell. The viewer can't tell. Why should you paint two distinct doors if you can't, if you don't actually need that information, right? So I don't think you need to know the type of, all the, like what details are you putting in here that you would have needed to know from back here? Like, I don't think there are any. You can just put some indications of like the things that make it feel like a car. Maybe there's two little tiny blips on the side that kind of look like tires. The fact it's on the road, it has a shadow, it's some white shiny material. Like, I don't think you need to zoom in to see the details, because the details aren't the things that you need to be painting anyway. Now, unless you want to, right? But a lot of times you don't need that, right? You can just keep it as a blob, and it's an implied, we'll know it's a car enough. And if it's the way that you experienced it and you want to communicate it as a blob, I think that's fine. I don't think you need to zoom in. I think it's sort of again, a little bit can be fine, but I think sometimes it's more of like, it's a bit, it is some back and forth, but I think it's more, at least for me, it's more of like a learning tool. So it's like, I know I'm going to paint it blobby, but I do want to know that, like, what is the part that I'm looking at, right? So if I say, and it's more for my own curiosity, like, it doesn't really matter in the case of actually painting it, but like when I'm implying a car, I see a very, so here, let's paint it. New image. Right? So I see, like I think from a learning point of view, it is nice to know, like, for example, I see this. So I see in this image, if I'm very zoomed out, I see a dark line on the bottom, right? I'm not going to even paint it in perspective, really. It may be a little bit, but like I see a dark line on the bottom. Oh, hold on. I need to make this gray so I can show the white. Then I see on top of the dark line, I see a white line. And then I see another dark line, but that's thicker than the first one. Or it's thinner than the white line, but thicker than the dark line. And then I see another very, very thin white line, right? That's kind of what I see. And then on the side, it's basically a gray, right? I see a gray. That's really all I'm seeing. Now, there are some nuance that make it look more car-like. Like, for example, there's a silhouette here of, there's a clear angle here. Now, you might say, what is the white? I don't actually know what the white line is, right? And then you see this, right? So I might say, this is all I need to paint. If I just paint what I see, this is it. Now, you might say, what is this first white line and what's the second white line, right? And maybe you zoom in and you say, that second white line is, oh, that's the top of the car. Do you, maybe you want to extend the top this way because you can see the top. Maybe it helps you define it, but you don't even need to know. Like, that's what I see. Do you need to put this line? I hate this song. It's so loud. Right as the beat drops. Is this the Adventure Zone music? It is! It's the Adventure Zone music. Yep, it is the Adventure Zone music. That song is too loud. This is all the Adventure Zone. This is an Adventure Zone 4 hour and 20 minute playlist. But yeah, so I think in some sense this would be enough, right? And maybe even make it a little blurry, right? You just blur up the edges and like that's enough to like there's a car. Do you really need more than that? No, because that's all you saw to make your brain say car. But there is like the learning factor of like, okay, there is the big front, there's the thin slice of the top. You know, maybe you could shape this one a little bit more, because you know if you're actually trying to get nitty gritty, there is like a little bit of light back there. But again, do you want to shape this small back here? If this is going to be a tiny thing in your painting, probably not, right? You probably don't even want that. It might just be a smudge, maybe. You know, do you need these angles to be perfect? Probably not, because that's not the way that you saw them, right? There's probably something to learn from, like, you know, paying attention to the side plane. But, like, I don't know. I don't think you need all this stuff. You know, like, all this light. I think that's getting too granular. Being like, oh, there's a shadow here. And then there's dark under here. I think that's getting too granular and too detailed. Because the rest of my painting wasn't going to be that detailed. You know? But it is good to know why the thing looked the way it did, you know? Because then if you're being too nitpicky about all this stuff, right? Too nitpicky about all the details, are you being that nitpicky for your whole painting? Because if you're not, this is going to look out of place, right? And I think that's my biggest concern is like, if I zoom in here to this shape and make sure that this shape is the right shape, this is going to be at a level of detail and shape design that nothing in my painting is. And it's going to look jarring. It's going to look weird, unless it's like a focal point and you actually want to look at it. But if it's just like a random thing, like a random tree, or, oh, there's a random log falling over here, why would you zoom in on that random log and make this log perfect when nothing else in the painting, right? Like, to me, there's this, like, you want to zoom in because you don't understand something, but that doesn't mean you have to paint it the way that, you know, it's tiny. It is tiny. It's tiny, but you still don't need it to be a higher level of refinement than the rest. I think that gives a weird look. It's tiny, that's what it makes it hard to read. Well, not when you're painting it, though. When you're painting it, you're actually losing detail. Like, when you actually see something, far away stuff, it's not just tiny. I mean, it is, but it's out of focus. It's hard to see. You literally cannot make out the details. It's not just that they're small. Small details you can look at and you can look at and you can see small details if you're careful. Far away, you just literally don't have that resolution. It's not a matter of just, I mean, technically speaking, yes, it's just small, right? Yeah. Technically speaking, it is just small. But from a perception standpoint, right? From a, like, you just exist and you're looking at things and your experience, I don't feel like you think of it as it's small. It's just like you accept that you can see it's a car and nothing else. And I feel like when I'm painting, that's kind of what I want to do, is like, you can see it's a car and nothing else. It's not a car because you aren't zoomed into the painting enough, right? I don't want you to be able to zoom into the painting and see the steering wheel. Yes, you can see that if you zoom in here, but that's because this is a photograph that's a higher resolution. But this isn't how your brain sees. Your brain can't just zoom in and see something far away because you took it with a high-powered camera. Your eyes aren't a high-powered camera, right? So I don't want to emulate a camera. I want to emulate, like, an experience, like my perception. So again, I don't think it's a wrong way to do it, you know, like, just zoom in more in detail, but that's not, to me, how I experience things. That's how a high-definition camera does, or a photo, right? You can't zoom in with your eyeballs. If you can't see it, you can't see it, right? If you experience it as a blurry blob or as an indication, and I think that's the struggle that I think I have, and also I assume other people have, is like, the fact that I can zoom in makes me think that, like, well, it's just small. But, like, to me it's not, I guess. I don't know. That's how I think about it anyway. But again, like I said, I don't think there's one right way to think about painting. It's more of like, is it a useful way of thinking about it? There are probably some projects or paintings where like you would just want to zoom in and detail like crazy, because maybe, and yes, when you zoom out, as long as the big shapes read, you're good. But maybe you want to allow people to zoom in and see the steering wheel, and zoom in and see what the person's holding, and zoom in and read the name on their driver's license. You know, maybe you want that. Like, that could be fun. But I don't want to do that because I don't think that information is useful. I don't think it's relevant. And, it's quite frankly too much work. But yeah, no, I mean, it's everybody has different ways of doing it. There are those. Have you seen those things? I know. What's his name? Why can I only think of his online name? Digital Bobbert. What is his name? Hold on. I should know his name. The dude who does. How do I not know his name? Bobby Chu. There we go. Bobby Chu. So Bobby, have you seen the things Bobby Chu does with his infinite canvas zoom? You guys have probably seen this, right? I haven't seen this one. Have you guys seen these? Here. Where it's like an infinite zoom, and there's like, oh, let's go in more, and then he'll zoom in, and it's like, oh, what's this? There's something back here. Oh, it's the Mushroom Emperor. And then you keep zooming. Or where's he going? And then, oh, you zoom into this speck. And what is that? Oh, it's a giant creature or tiny creature. And he just keeps on zooming. And he zooms and he zooms. And it's like, oh, there's people looking off in the distance. And on their hat, there's a bug. And on the bug, there's a, what is that? It's a town. It's a farmhouse with a cat. Follow. And he has, he'll sneak and like subscribe and stuff. Then you get into the cells, and in the cells there's, what is that? It's the atoms, and you keep going. And on the atom is a mountain. Or it's another mushroom. And then he just keeps going. That's gotta be a huge file. So, I don't know how it works. It's not, I don't know what program he's using, but it's not, I don't think it's purely a resolution thing. It's like shenanigans. I don't, anyway, he started over. I don't fully understand it. I think he explains it somewhere. But yeah, no, he does a lot of these where he zooms in, and he'll paint things. This is, I don't know what this is. Is this Lee Home? I don't know who that is. So some of it's like, these aren't paintings, right? This is photo bashed or whatever. These are photos. But he does, I don't exactly know how he does it, but yeah, it's pretty cool. He says there's no editing tricks. Well, it's not editing tricks, but it's like, you know how there's those like infinite zoom canvases that maintain resolution, but I think it only creates the canvas where you zoom, if that makes sense. It's like I don't know if it's a separate file type. I don't know enough about it, but I'm pretty sure the whole file is not at that resolution. Is it vector? Well, it might be vector. It might be like a vector. Yeah, it might be vector. I don't exactly know how it works, but I'm pretty sure the whole file is not at that resolution. Because otherwise, yeah, that would be insane. You'd have to have the most powerful computer ever. No, it doesn't seem to... Yeah, it doesn't seem to be that. I don't know for sure. I don't know how it works. I'm sure if you went back in his timeline far enough, he would explain it, because he'd be like, I'm playing around with this thing, right? Like, but he's kind of just made it like his thing. I don't know. He does a lot of it. It's wild, though. I love. Yeah, it is. And I think, there's an element of like, oh, do you want to be able to see what's in there? And it is pretty. Infinite Zoom is pretty cool. It's a neat thing. But yeah, Bobby Chu's been doing that for a long time. It's funny that I couldn't remember his name, Bobby Chu, but I could remember his Instagram name. Which I guess is good, because that's the thing I wanted to look up anyway. His YouTube is Chew on This. Yeah, so he had another YouTube too. He also runs Schoolism. I think he literally started Schoolism. So Schoolism is his thing. So he runs the official Schoolism YouTube channel. Yeah, he had a bunch of channels, but I think for some reason he stopped posting on his main YouTube channel. And then he made Chew on This, and yeah, no, he's done a bunch of YouTube stuff, and I don't know if he still posts regularly or not. He might. I don't really watch much of his content, to be honest. It seems to stop popping up in my feed all the time, even when I actively look it up, and then I stop seeing it. I don't know why. But yeah, no, he typically has good content generally. A little bit of a pinkish color back here that I quite like. Like a red dirt, like a reddish pinkish dirt thing, like almost like there's, I think it's just light, but so this obviously is not to scale, and I'm okay with that. Kind of in the spirit of the fantasy landscapes, kind of making it up as we go. At this point, I'm making it up as I go. Initially, I stayed pretty close to the reference, but kind of playing around with some negative space and trying not to put too high of detail or high concentration of shapes in some spots. That's always a perpetually, like, you know, going back to our talk with, like, about the car, that's a thing that I struggle with just always, is like there's sort of this, like, as you go back the shapes get smaller, right? But also they're not as in focus. And so if you paint everything with like a hard edged brush and you just make them smaller in the background, you actually end up having your most detailed stuff in the background. And you don't want that, right? That's the opposite of what you want. You want it to feel like you can see the stuff up close the most and not see the stuff in the background. So like you can't just paint everything smaller, because then you have all your small shapes in the back and you have no small shapes in the foreground. And that's oftentimes, like, compositionally not a good move, because your focal point tends to be like around those like, you know, you're gonna notice that the high contrast and you're gonna notice the small shapes, right? And so it creates this struggle, and I think that's exactly what that struggle is that in real life you do have a bunch of small shapes in the background, but they're out of focus, and the stuff in the foreground, you create the small shapes, but by having all that nuance and delineation between shapes, and like we end up, it's like for example, this might be technically a you know, this is all the street, and yes, the street would have more detail back here, but the detail back here would be blurred, and our brains would be able to see the detail up here, so we create these like random patterns and shapes. And so technically we have more texture and stuff up close, and we actually have smaller shapes up close. Even though technically those same shapes would be scaled smaller, you just don't see them. And so the only stuff you see is the small shapes up close. Right? And so that's where, like, you create the small shapes within the bigger shapes. And that's in the foreground. In the background, you don't do that. You don't try to go, like, the super tiny, because, I mean, you could, but that would give, like, a weird texture that you don't want when you zoom out. It makes it feel like it's gritty or something. It gives a weird... It doesn't quite give the right feeling to me. Although I will admit, I do want to make this car look a little more car-like. There, I think that's good. But yeah, no, I think painting environments and painting things at a distance is to me, it's super fascinating. Because there's so many unintuitive... I mean, that's just painting in general. There's so many unintuitive things that you feel like should be one way, but then you do it, and it's like, wait, this doesn't look right, or it doesn't feel right. It's like a big magic trick. But yeah, I just want to say again, thanks for everybody who's lurking and hanging out. I really appreciate you. It means a lot that you're here, and everybody who raided. I am getting ready to end. I'm a little tired. I need some food. Thanks for the stream. The art looks great. Arquillium, I really appreciate it. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I think this one is my weakest in terms of, like, technical skill, but that's because I was trying to do accurate perspective, and I struggle. I struggle with that. I think my issue is that I was trying to paint observationally and not constructionally. Is that a word? Constructionally? I wasn't trying to reconstruct it as much as I was trying to paint it from observation. And so, had I just started with a cube, I could have made the cube in perspective, right? And I could have matched the perspective, and I think I could have reconstructed it accurately. But because I was trying to just paint, like, angles and lines, like, oh, let's make this vaguely that angle, and this will be that angle. Somewhere along the way I got off, and it looks funny. And I don't like it, but that's okay. I also feel like some of this stuff is a little saturated. There. But yeah. I'm liking this. And of course, one last thing before I end. I'm going to merge all that. Then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to repaint these numbers so that 1 and 2 can stay. That way this is a 3, 4. There. And we'll call that a day. Thanks again for hanging out. If you're on YouTube, thanks for being here. Thanks for the subscribes. I almost said the follows. But I stream 3 days a week. Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Next stream will be Thursday because today is Monday. And yeah, thanks for being here. Hope to see everybody. And also, yeah, I stream those. Anyway, those are the days. Anyway, goodbye.